Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really want
to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
Our award-winning show is back, and this season promises to be even more exciting than before. What's Up, Doc isn't just a title, it's a call to action for anyone who wants to improve their health and well-being. Join us on this thrilling ride towards better health on WESN Content Capital.
As always, we appreciate you starting your day with us. Let's get into this morning's first conversation.
Is the country's healthcare system more at risk more than ever?
Why it has remained unaddressed for so long.
Political parties get lots of cash, big cash from financiers, and then when they get that now, you can't account for it.
But it's really the specialist nurses who we are in a greater shortfall for.
We can tap into the resources and have them, at least form some mentorship programs.
Highlight our food systems, and which will attract persons from all over the world to come and experience something that actually supports the local economy.
We're lucky that we have a vibrant legal system that allows change to take place, and it's not that matters are just swept under the carpet and discrimination is allowed to be perpetrated.
A lot of people don't know that there were attempts to ban the carnival, suppress the carnival.
WESN.
The transition of power. It's always a funny time where if mishandled, it will leave the population probably a lot more misguided than they have to be. This is Talking Point Shawn Michael Small here. One of the things that I wanted to point out, because we try to be balanced, like when I cut my hair, I try to shave my beard so I maintain balance. Former Minister of Education, MP Simon Dunenberger is, or at least the PNM is, calling out to the fact that, in their opinion, the current government is potentially looking to take credit for work that was started within WASA under the PNM, which is not completely unreasonable. Depending on the nature of the work, it would be very difficult to say, oh yes, well, 2 months in and all them dominoes gonna fall. No, it's not impossible. It's not likely. That's just one of the interesting things about transition, where you have projects that are incomplete. And I understand to what extent that, the outgoing administration will want to say these things. To some extent, it's only fair. Because I repeatedly said, one, the then PDP, now TPP, was correct when they wanted to come up front and say, hey, we've had some budgetary issues. So some of them campaign promises might be hard because what we found is unfortunately a not so great financial position. And then even the Keith Rowley administration, when they now started, I have said this example multiple times. The situation with the ferry service was an ongoing long-term one that they met, that was left by the partnership, whoever made those decisions at the time, but it was the partnership cabinet where during that period, issues with the ferries, maintenance was coming, more and more frequent as the ferries were getting older. And it was one of those things where the then new PNM administration wasn't entirely aware of what was going on, which I find ridiculous, to be honest. I mean, I guess one wonders if there was no COVID, if there would have been a second term. But anyway, and the point was, it was an unforced error because they took the blame upon themselves for a ferry service that they met. Of course, the flip side could happen. An administration could take the credit for something that was a decision of the previous administration. I mean, even the partnership themselves, on the negative side, similar to the PNM example, the whole situation with Napa. They didn't make decisions to build it, but then for some strange reason, when it came time to open it, they didn't really want to show it off to the press. It was very weird. And I don't know why, because it was a case of, well, you all didn't approve it. You all didn't go through the process to construct it. You all just were the ones that ended up having to open probably what is the concert hall. I can't necessarily say for the school or the hotel. I have not been in any hotels, so I don't know what the facilities are like. And maybe for someone like me, it's best if I don't ever step foot in there. Because however many, 2 decades later, or a decade later, I'm not really looking forward to seeing what it's like, given our pattern of maintenance issues. It's a trending, or it's our precedent of maintenance, poor maintenance decisions. So, the flip side, like I said, is true. There are times when a government wants to take credit for something that they meet. Before Gate was dollar for dollar. You have to one-up your predecessor or try to somehow claim their work for your own. This is a common occurrence. I can't necessarily speak to other jurisdictions because for whatever strange reason, it's not something that I've really delved into with regards to other outside jurisdictions, but it's something that is a repeated topic of conversation whenever we have a transition of government. Who's taking credit for whose work? Who's trying to pass off blame? Who left whatever bad situation for the other guy or girl to pick up? So I can't fault the PNM for saying it. It's just what would have helped. It would have helped. It would have made the current situation, their current situation would have been stronger if they were more transparent back then, when they were in government. Now, to be fair, then Public Utilities Minister Marvin Gonzalez, at times, he was in the press communicating, giving WASA praise, pushing projects along, or at least showing public leaderships. And to some extent, we have to ask, was he making WASA look as an entity, as an organization, better than it was?
because to some extent, those questions are there. It was one of those very interesting things where we all kind of knew that the P&M said they wanted to restructure WASA, but they didn't. And it was a weird dichotomy of, hey, well, you know, they get more wells and they're doing stuff. But technically, all these issues that the government raised are unresolved, the then P&M government. So exactly, are we supposed to believe the good news out of the then PNM government or the bad news about WASA out of the then PNM government? We don't know. Of course, the results of not everybody having water on an all too frequent basis kind of makes the positives, it kind of gives it a cap, a ceiling of how much it could really give us the warm, fuzzy, positive feelings. But at the end of the day, like many institutions of this nation before and even right now, the then government, no one will ever accuse them of being an open book. Now the question is, will this government be an open book? Because this is the example of a lack of transparency. Forget being a safeguard against accusations of wrongdoing and corruption. Now you want to make a narrative. But since you didn't necessarily show us at each point along the way where you were at, what things were like, how things were going, what was going on, it's very hard for us to just kind of pick up at a random point and say, oh yes, you did so much. Because at least in the courts of public opinion, yes, there might be paperwork somewhere that will prove what you say is true. Will we ever see it? Probably not. In the court of public opinion, the public receipts, that is to say, public communications, published statements, whether via print or television or the internet or radio, we don't have enough of those to really cement, oh yes, all of these things with WASA was done, and it was done well, and we could see the trajectory of where we're going. So, as I always say, transparency could work for you, but most politicians seem to view transparency as a four-letter word that has been cancelled by the political mob, not by the woke mob, by our political mob, apparently. Apparently our politicians have cancelled the word transparency, or they give it lip service. They give it lip service, I'm sure. So now, dare I say, this is a lesson that politicians could learn from if they are so inclined to want to improve. And this is not just for the PNM, this is for the UNC too, because starting to see a lack of transparency in things. Went over that a little bit last week. All of a sudden, we want to talk about who these people are and why we fired who we fired and why we hired who we hired for certain high-level positions. That if the PNM did it, the opposition UNC would be all over that. All of a sudden, it can't just be all good just because of the symbol of who decided to do what. Now, another ongoing thing, and I think this is another ongoing consequence of a situation that we might want to underestimate. See, politicians want to underestimate transparency. Or they will say it's important, but really and truly, they don't actually act like it's important. They don't actually act like it's a priority. They don't actually act as though it's more important than whatever individual political agenda they have. Like their failed public messaging campaign, whatever it is. Whatever it is. Well, in a similar manner, the PH taxi system, I'm just saying, there are going to be downfalls of having an informal, not just unregulated taxi system, but an unregulated taxi system that technically is operating outside the law and against what is supposed to be proper procedure. PH taxis. And then people will say, well, oh gosh, that's the only taxis available at night. Think about it this way. Why is it, right? Is being a registered taxi so expensive that you can't make money, but yet PH drivers are like, I know I could make money at night, and it's enough money for me to risk my skin given the vulnerability to criminal activity at nighttime. So, what is it? Is it profitable or not? Is registering to be a taxi that expensive or that burdensome? Because now there's a situation where the police, the Eastern Division, basically had to put their foot. I'm not going to say that this was necessarily the right or wrong decision, but I understand where the police officers in this situation with regards to white private buses operating from the official taxi stand in San Grande, basically they have to put their foot down because you have to draw the line somewhere. And if it wasn't going to be here, it was going to be somewhere else. But the point is, people say, oh, why? Have a heart, blah, 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 blah. No. Things need to be done properly. If we want to deregulate the taxi system in TNT, tell your politicians, hey, do away with taxi regulations then. Why do we even have it? How many people don't even go on an H taxi? So what's the point? So it's an informal system that is less than legal. And the police finally said, hey, they had to have limits. These white private buses, these white private panel vans, you can't be operating in illegal taxi stand because you all are PH, or I believe PH. And those who don't like it, tough, because we just kind of took it for granted that the norm will be fine. Because nobody wanted to actually have a long-term proper solution. This is like when you have an issue in your friend group and everybody want to be passive-aggressive. Nobody actually wants to solve the problem so that we could move on with our lives and continue to be friends, and then you end up with the band falling apart. Because you want the police, think about it. For anyone that wants the police to turn a blind eye to any sort of PH taxi situation, as far as I am aware, you are basically telling the police, hey, we have a crime problem, but ignore those laws. Those laws, you could ignore them. Now, on whose authority is that decision being made? Because then now, when a police officer takes a drug dealer and drives him through a roadblock, at what point do we lose the moral capacity to complain about these things? Who determines which laws are big enough to demand they be enforced, but which laws are small enough that we could just turn a blind eye? Oh, it's okay. Why are they be so serious? Which is something that's fine to say if you're making jokes with your friend. But it's a hell of a way to live if that is essentially what you may or may not be telling the police service for certain things. That's why we have a littering problem, by the way. Because people want to be big men, and why I be so serious? And it's not that serious. It's not that serious until you look out on the ferry at the port of Port of Spain, and you just see how dirty the water is. And it's one thing if it was dirty just because of the port, but something tells me that's not just because of the port. All right, I'll wrap up my musings with an unfortunate observation. One of the things that those who know are looking out for is gun violence. The murder rate was somewhat reduced within the last couple of months. I'm not entirely sure about last month per se for June, but May it was reduced, I believe. And it was not an insignificant reduction. One of the things that I didn't notice happening as frequently as when the violence was at its zenith. I didn't notice as much utilization of rifles, and of course, there was also not as many mass casualty shootings. Casualties are not just deaths, they're also injuries. The point is, multiple people got shot in mass casualty situations, mass casualty shootings. There was one that happened over the weekend Fortunately, only one person was killed, and I say that in the most bitterest sense of silver linings, because of course someone is dead. A wife has lost a husband, a child has lost his father. So the fortunate side of it is the other victims, I believe there were potentially 3 others, did not die, but they were, at least in 2 cases, I think, based on the reports of the injuries, at least 2 of them were shot. One had wounds on the face, but was released, or at least I believe I read he was released, so the implication is he wasn't shot in the face. The wife has come out to say that, or the sister, sorry, has come out to say that her brother had a troubled life, turned his rifle around and was doing certain work, hunting, farming, and the like. Now, again, we don't know what people are involved in, right? So I reserve the right to comment if more information comes out. But for the most part, I could believe it. There have been enough reports about young men who either they want to stay out of crime or maybe they were in crime and they don't want to be in crime, because there are enough reports, and I think they're believable, in part because it's one of those things where at some point certain criminal gang leaders and the like kind of figure out, hey, it's not good if I allow people to retire. At least it's not good for them. That's what they think. They don't want that. One, they don't want people to leave the organization and just decide to go legit, right, in peace, because it runs the risk of their manpower walking out on them. In a quote-unquote business where it's very easy to have high, for lack of a better way to put it, employee turnover, given the risks, as one could imagine. More importantly, who knows? At some point, they might also be concerned about the hidden danger of a former associate, maybe all of a sudden coming back into the game and striking them out of nowhere, taking them out, taking over their business. Who knows? Whatever the motivation is, this is not abnormal that criminals want to go after former criminals or those who want to denounce criminal activity and reject joining any sort of gang or unit. Can't even necessarily call it organized units. So there's that. There is that potential where we already have an uphill battle when it comes to rehabilitation in this country. And that's one of the other things too. If you have too many examples of rehabilitations, all of a sudden your criminal recruits, they see a way out of the life of crime. Goes back to it's affecting the labor pool for criminal gangs. They don't want to see that. But then goes back to where I started. I believe the reports are something like 5.56 millimeter shell casings were found at the scene. Somewhere around that number. Not entirely sure if it was an automatic spray, or if it was semi-automatic fire, given the situation. It technically could be a little bit of both. I don't know. There's also was a report that the deceased victim was specifically the target of this endeavor, and they chased after him to ensure that he died. But the point is, to some extent, whether automatic fire or semi-automatic fire and just sloppily contained, other people were hit or injured in this. And again, the only reason why we don't have multiple fatalities in this situation is probably, at least to too much of an uncomfortable degree, dumb luck. Now we have to wait and see, is the trend of shooting into groups of people in order to kill a specific target, is that coming back as a norm moving forward? And is the use of high-powered rifles, which will increase the probability and risk of collateral damage and unintended victims, be back on the rise? Because a lot of attacks for the year were done with pistols. But now maybe they've dusted off the rifles from the weapon caches, and it's going to be the Wild West all over again. I mean, we don't have an SOE, Carnival, or an election to distract us now. Now it's Fed time. Fed time, we're starting to go into the carnival season, the pre-season of the pre-season, or whatever you want to call it. And people want money in order to party. Because, you know, we could be broke, but we're jamming still. Some people take loans that they can't afford to pay off, and some people utilize other means to make cash withdrawals. And that might be enough of an incentive for criminal activity to grow. I hope it's not. I pray it's not. We wish the police and the new commissioner all the best in their attempt to keep that from happening. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll go into one of the first, maybe the only big topic for today, and get to the daily review. But we'll do that after this. Stay tuned.
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience. Give us a call at 235-5479 for more information.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Struggling with heart health or frequent migraines? Discover the simple steps to reclaim your energy and vitality.
We're diving into a topic that affects about 422 million people around the world: diabetes.
Tune into Wellness Unlocked, the series that delivers expert advice, practical tips, and inspiring stories to help you take control of your health and well-being. Your health matters. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and take the first step toward better health.
All right, SCA results have been announced. So, of course, one of the top stories coming into this week is just that, the potential fallout of the results. There are a couple of things to glean from the reports. One of them, I don't necessarily know how intentional it was, but we'll get to that in a bit. Of course, I guess you can say the big thing, as reported, the Ministry of Education had the top 5 SCA students, and that event was also at a time when the Minister of Education was able to speak to the population with regards to the SCA results, I believe, and at the ceremony. Now, out of 17,000 students, 6,000 scored below 50%, 2,000 scored below 30%. And the minister did speak to the fact that, look, there was some improvement in certain subjects, like mathematics. A minor increased 52% mean score compared to last year's 50.7%. English language had a much higher jump from 53.4 to 66.7, right? Slight decrease in English language, arts, creative writing. But one of the things that he did say was that the results were not comparable to last year's because they changed the assessment framework. They reintroduced several mathematical objectives. This is a quote that were removed in previous years. The results from 2025 establish a new national benchmark standard that we'll use as we go forward to compare whether there is an improvement. So whether there was an improvement or not, on one hand, at least with regards to math, he didn't necessarily speak to English. So I don't know, with regards to the objectives, some were reintroduced, so that would I believe that means that certain topics or certain things on the syllabus were re-added or added back that were removed. So, you know, to compare the previous years, it's not so simple. However, the fact that there was some improvement with potentially a more demanding assessment, that's not necessarily a bad sign. With regards to the English subjects, they didn't necessarily say that they had similar conditions, but if the assessment framework was potentially adjusted for all subjects, it still kind of makes comparisons difficult. So to what extent now for the creative writing drop do you say, oh, well, that's a bad sign? That could have been just because, look, you made a change and the response to the change wasn't that good. The problem with exams is it's not just about your knowledge and skill. It's also about the proficiency of the students writing an exam in that system. Because you take practice tests and you have teachers kind of run through, for those who know the term, the meta of SEA exams. What's to be expected? What's not to be expected? Like I remember when I did Common Entrance, there was one practice test where nobody got higher than 70-something. And it was just like an anomaly of a practice test that some parents did not necessarily understand. But the teachers impressed upon us, look, this was a hard practice test. This is not the norm. Because we were trained to have a certain level of expectations and a certain level of work, because that's what Common Entrance was for the most part for years. And it's similar to the SEA. If you make changes, the first group that runs into the change, you can't expect them to automatically do just as well. They might improve, they might show some negative slips because of it. It's interesting that he's saying that there was a change in the assessment framework, because arguably that potentially would have had to have been in the works under the PNM administration. Of course, the flip side is because I say that because it's very easy to wonder, were they trying to reduce the difficulty of math? That's one of those things that I highly disagree with regards to political ideology in terms of standard of work and meritocracy. Whereas you have certain ideologies that will translate into, well, we need to reduce the standards because some demographics are not doing as well as other demographics, and that's not fair. It's not as though, you know, we could maybe figure it out to improve their performance, and this is the bigotry of low expectations. They're basically saying, we don't actually think you could do better based on the standards, so we'll drop the standards. And that's why, technically speaking, it seems as though it's out of compassion and understanding, but it's actually bigotry because they're saying you're dumb, those who can't get the results. In the States, it will be those who are not Asian. Dare I say what it would be in TNT? No, I do not. I don't want to go down that road. But again, I'm not saying that that is the case, because the standards being reintroduced probably, given the timeline of how the election and how the exams would have, I don't think, you know, they would have had a month to kind of switch things up for SEA. I mean, if they did make changes, if the new government made changes to this year's SEA, I don't know how I would feel about that, to be honest. So I suspect that was in the works under the PNM, and maybe they were trying to kind of do adjustments that I don't necessarily think were good adjustments because of these situations with COVID, right? So that said, back to, it leads me to the other point about this. Now, 1/3, less than half, 2,000, so we're talking 2,000 out of over 17,000, under a third. A part of me, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that. Is that too large, too small? To what extent is there other factors that could lead to the performance in the SEA being that bad for those students? I'm not entirely sure. The minister did say that they were going to have targeted support for low SEA scorers. Now, I hope that this does not include students that are not capable of writing their own name, as one secondary school teacher basically revealed that he had students in Form 1 that could not write. I hope that's not part of the issue here. Although, again, it's kind of difficult for you to score, unless it's multiple choice. I don't know what the format of the essay is. Now, the former Minister of Education, Dr. Nan Gaspigoli, she said she's disappointed to see the return of the recognition of the top 5 performers. And there's a part of me that kind of understands it, but ultimately, I don't necessarily agree with it. Because first of all, this is the quote, I see the awards are back, but I also see the divisiveness are back again. And that is exactly what the PNM took the decision to not do that, to avoid. However, let's see how it goes. Why is it divisive? Because the results are the results. And unfortunately, this is not an issue that we can't look to other countries and not see similar examples. Not the same though, but similar. And again, we have to ask ourselves, why are you saying there's a situation that could bring about divisiveness in the first place? What's going on? Is something wrong? Why is there something wrong? Would you like to give your theories as to why this is happening? What exactly are you saying is happening? Because at the end of the day, there's certain stereotypes now with our education system. Some of them are what schools are bad, what classification of schools are bad, what subjects or job or career paths are bad, what geographical areas have the best schools, and so on and so on. Which schools get the more resources, which schools get the better teachers. There are a lot of different things with regards to this. And in some ways, the questions about primary education is in some ways even worse than secondary education. But at the end of the day, the minister has a good point on principle. And you might say, well, oh, this puts too much stress and this makes it too competitive. Listen, the SCA is competitive regardless of if you know who the top 5 are or not. You know what schools they went to or not. You know what demographic, geographic area, religion, age, race, whatever, gender. The SCA is going to be hyper-competitive and it's going to stress out our students regardless. Because the main thing is going to be the parents telling the kids, you need to do well in order to get into a good school, otherwise your life is over, right? The top 5 being presented ain't really adding much more to compound that. That's all you need. The whole setup that every SCA student's going to get of how important this test is more than enough to put way too much psychological pressure on 11 and 12-year-olds. But the minister had a point that I think we take for granted, that I think we try to underplay. And that is the administration is based on meritocracy and we want to recognize excellence. Those students who have demonstrated academic excellence will be an inspiration to their peers and to this nation. Why not celebrate excellence? Why not point out those that have done well? Why not reward meritocracy? What is it about meritocracy that we don't like? We already have a situation where I think systemically in our nation, as a society, but to some extent, more critically for governance or in terms of governance in the public sector, including potentially in the national security apparatus, meritocracy is like transparency. It's a 4-letter word that politicians would like to cancel. Because if I have to go on a platform where I reward and promote meritocracy, what it means is my voting base, who I have neglected, potentially, I'm not saying who has neglected anybody, but let's just say there'll be those who are neglected by politicians. And of course, that would include the party that they voted for if they vote. Well, on the meritocracy's sake, they're going to have a hard time. But why don't I try to find a way to redistribute resources just based on arbitrary ideology? or some lip service to fairness, because we had to be fair, although we bloody well know that there's never enough to go around, and whatever a political party does to distribute resources, somehow the other side's people gets left out into the cold. You know what I mean? It's funny how that works, right? And it's not like that's a pattern that we haven't seen time and time again. We wait with bated breath to see if it will happen this time. To be fair, though, the laptop program is literally for all, so kudos for that. That's one of the reasons why you take out things like means tests, so then there's no doubt that it's for all, right? Assuming you could afford it. That's a whole other debate. Meritocracy needs to be promoted. But the best part about this, and I want you to put back up the photo of the 5 primary school students. There's one boy in there, second from the right. He's not wearing a school uniform because he is a private candidate. I assume, because I went to private primary school, we were part of the school. I don't know if it's a private school that he went to and maybe it's different now, so he didn't go with school uniforms or they're considered private candidates, or if he was homeschooled. I don't see in the report if it says that he's homeschooled or not. I hope it is. Because I think homeschooling in this country, one, deserves more recognition as a viable alternative, and two, I think the issues with our public education system and even our private primary education system, because some of the same issues plague both, believe it or not, like the extra lessons stuff. I've seen that in a private setting. Regardless, here we have a private candidate. I believe that means they did it in a private capacity on their own, which means that he could have been homeschooled. Look how far that student would have reached if that's the case. Now going to the bottom results, the 2,000 who got under 30%. I don't know if SEA, we need to relook at it, what the objectives are, how hard it's supposed to be, what the syllabus is supposed to be for these students in order to prepare them for secondary school, or is it just supposed to be the Hunger Games of the academic system to see who gets placed where? What's the objective for it? But also, to what extent homeschool children can achieve. I know, not necessarily first hand, but immediate second hand, let's put it that way. Oh God, that isn't actually, that's not actually the literal meaning of what I mean, but roll with it, right? It makes me think that maybe our school system, it's not that our homeschooling system is so great. There is no system as far as I'm aware, right? Or whatever does exist is working, to be fair. But what is it about our school system that is failing too many of our children? Because here's the unfortunate reality. We have set things up where if you do bad at SEA, to some extent, your life potentially is all over because we don't know what to do if that doesn't work. Because things like trades or alternative career paths, those are not things that our society has tolerated. We have belittled them, we have stepped on them, we have buried them when possible. And now, all of a sudden, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Anyway, this is an ongoing conversation. We'll continue at a later time. Our guest is waiting, so we'll take a break. When we come back, we will welcome our media ambassador. Of course, we are now into what I like to call the summer vacation. We import a lot of things from America. Why not? Shucks. Stay tuned. This is Talking on WS, and we'll be right back after this.
Low energy? Heart concerns? Migraines slowing you down? It's time to take control of your health. Join Wellness Unlocked, the series that brings expert advice and real solutions for a healthier you. In our latest episode, learn how Jameson CoQ10 can help support heart health, boost energy, and even reduce migraines. Get the science, the stories, and the steps to power up your health with CoQ10. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and start your wellness journey today.
Our award-winning show is back, and this season promises to be even more exciting than before. What's Up, Doc isn't just a title, it's a call to action for anyone who wants to improve their health and well-being. Join us on this thrilling ride towards better health on WESN Content Capital.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really want
to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I would ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
Hi, I am Emiliana Beechan and I am a mental health and conflict resolution consultant. Welcome to Mind Matters, the show where we explore the intricate world of mental health and the art of conflict resolution. Join us as we hear from mental health professionals, conflict resolution experts, and everyday people who have transformed their lives through understanding and communication. Mind Matters, coming soon to WESN Content Capital.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for. It's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we kind of have to stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's being the victim,
right,
or the man who's being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happening in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI. Worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
I'm back here talking about the WSD Capital Show. Michael Small, joined by acting SB Christopher Arun, and we're now into what I would say, because I know I have colleagues that dislike us using the term, that is to say Trinbagonians, of summer vacation. But you know what? That's what you get when you want to import that much of American culture into the population. Okay? Okay? Capiche? Anyway, the point is, it's the longest vacation in the year, and of course you have the TTPS joining us once again to speak about it. Something that we've heard before, like Facebook Marketplace, but some people don't get the message and end up being victims, and it's one thing to lose $30,000. It's the next thing with regards to the safety of children. So thanks for joining me, ASP Arun.
Good day to you, Sean, your staff and your viewers. The TTPS, the Media Ambassador program, has embarked on a drive to inform members of the public about the need to supervise children properly, especially over the July-August school vacation period, or as you say, the summer vacation, or the rainy season vacation. I don't know how you call it now. And
I've never heard that one, the rainy season. July, August, all right, fine. But oh gosh, that's a mouthful. July, August. Or you could just say summer. And everybody knows what you mean, just saying.
Okay, so
anyway.
Yeah, so we've had incidents in the past and about supervision. So we've had parents leave their children unattended, especially very young children. We're talking about 2 or 3 years old in a home, and they go to the drugstore, they go to the mall, they go to the grocery, they go to something, they see, or maybe even the doctor, and they think it's very important that they leave the child unattended. And we've had cause to charge parents for abandonment. Now, Section 4 of the Children's Act, 4601, which is the Parent Act, as amended by the Children's Act 12 of 2012, it speaks to the to offenses relating to cruelty of a child. Well, one of the ingredients or one of the offenses is abandonment. So you have abandonment, you have neglect, you have assault, willful neglect, willful assault, ill treatment, whether it be physical or psychological and whatnot. You still have offenses under this section catered for children. And when we look at the July-August school vacation period, we see in the past the incidents of persons abandoning their children or leaving them unattended, or even leaving them in the care of incapacitated persons or persons who are not well endowed to see about them, and they can be charged for offenses. So we just wanted to warn members of the public on that aspect. Then you have issues like children going to the malls, and when we say children, we're talking about anybody under the age of 18. So once you're under the age of 18, 17 and a half, 17 and 3/4, however you call it, you're a child, and you would be frequenting the malls, frequenting parks, frequenting schools, frequenting community centers and whatnot. You must be supervised at all times. Now, it's not illegal not to be supervised at these public places. So therefore, we have police officers, especially on around this time, in these areas, performing patrols and catering, like community policing, catering to these issues. So you'd see in the malls, you'd see more patrols in the malls, like Christmas time, like Carnival time.
Yeah.
You'd see uniform and plainclothes patrols. Well, you may not make all the...
Yeah. The point of the plainclothes is for the rest of us not to know.
And they would be in and around the malls, and they would be pulling up on kids if they getting out of order and whatnot.
Right.
But it is very important that you supervise children, especially if you're dropping them off, like we say to Movie Town or wherever you're dropping them off, that they are supervised to some extent.
Well, because you said it's not illegal for them to not be supervised.
No, not in Trinidad. There is no...
Because I guess on some level...
In a public place.
Right. On some level, there's a practicality of, well, the child ran from a hand.
Right.
So you can't charge me when he bolts.
No.
So like, it's just a little too impractical. But the flip side to that is, the child does not possess legal liability, right?
No,
so the parents need to understand.
Yeah.
If the children are up to no good and say they break something, they steal something.
No, there is criminal liability.
Well, okay, right,
Yeah.
but like the financial damages for certain things
Correct, that's up to
could
the
be
parent.
on to the
Yeah,
parent.
you have to sue
right?
the parent to get back that.
So,
right? Then there are the issues like supervising kids that, especially around this particular time, you have what we call the events like graduation and prom and whatnot.
Yeah.
And you have, persons being dropped off and.
Yeah, I want pressure to go into one of those. What happened? What hit social media? But of course, one of the things is, I guess, there is something to be said about underage drinking.
Yeah, of course.
And of course, like for Form 5 students, now might be the time when the parents might be like, I did it.
Yeah.
My siblings did it.
Right.
Like all of the generations in between.
And then culturally it's accepted.
Culturally
around
acceptable.
Christmas time you have children drinking eggnog and local wine and whatnot.
Would you say that it's one thing to do it back in the day, in the old time days, when things didn't change yet?
Right.
But maybe things are a little bit too complex now, and especially since we don't have the village.
Right.
And the kids are off on their own.
Yeah.
Encouraging drinking is it's just, it's more complicated now.
Yeah.
There's more consequences or potential pitfalls now.
Right, so historically when you look at, maybe, I don't know if you're old enough to understand, but maybe in the past, drinking was seen as a more responsible event in the sense that you were kind of brought up by the village to drink responsibly to some extent.
Right.
Yeah, it was a rite of passage and whatnot. Now, with pop culture, like, the summer vacation, there's a pop term. Now you have alcohol being a popular drink amongst teenagers and young adults because of the culture now. So then they take away so there's not the father bringing you a beer and saying, okay, well, I want to see you drink it and, I want to see how you behave.
Have drinks at home, have wine at home.
Right.
Because I think in Europe, one of the things is they expose kids to wine.
Your dinner and whatnot.
It wouldn't be some cheap beer in a pub that you're drinking.
Right.
You'll expose kids to like high quality stuff, with dinner, like maybe not even just wine, but it's controlled.
Right. And then, they get introduced to the drinking in a responsible way. As opposed to now when it's just, it might be pop culture to drink and see how much you could drink I do remember back in the day in Tobago, we had a rum punch party and young people kind of, got into the rum punch. Yeah. And didn't just get into the rum punch, they took it too far. Right. I can't remember how old they were. And now there are severe consequences for persons giving alcohol to children and even selling alcohol to children. So you would be charged for offenses under the Act as well. And the thing is, too, there's also the fact that it might, because I do think, I remember seeing somewhere where, way in the past, I'm talking long, young, ancient, whatever, medieval, whatever, the strength of alcohol now and the strength of alcohol then, because I can imagine people ain't waiting years to drink something, right? And then, I don't know if, how old is puncheon and the concepts of alcohol of that strength. Right. And some young people, it goes in trends. Yeah. It's almost like if there's going to be a generation that's going to say, hey, my older sibling generation, they drank rum, so we had to drink puncheon because we had to be better than them somehow, right? Yeah. But then when that generation kind of suffers through that, the one that comes up after them is like, hey, they did that, so let's not do that because that's stupid, right? Yeah. But it'll come back again, and it's not just puncheon. At this point, like Lord only knows what else he has. And then on top of that, you have things like various pre-mixed punches and pre-mixed this and that, and then of course they have drugs on top of that, which is something. Drugs as well. Like so that's another thing because you don't have the village, right? But in the past you had the village, you had the controlled situation, you didn't have as much parties, right? And then things were a bit more limited. So I would imagine it's one thing for a young person to try to go to a party when there's only so many clubs and there's only so much space, right? But now things have changed, right? So we just had a lot more informal control over things. And they didn't have hard drugs like they have now. Right. But now, to some extent, what I said about puncheon, hard drugs, well, weed to hard drugs could be that to alcohol, right? Yeah. They say, oh, well, they drank,
but they're losers, so we need to smoke weed. Oh, they smoke weed, so they're losers, so we need to do ecstasy.
Yeah.
Oh, they did ecstasy, but we're better than them, so we need to do white powder or whatever.
Yeah, and then you have pharmaceutical drugs as well that could be used. Yeah.
Well, that's the next thing. You leave your kids unattended.
Yeah. So there are severe consequences, and the police would be investigating.
You know, they could go after your own pharmaceuticals in your own house.
Yeah. You could have sleeping pills for you, and your kids are abusing it. Painkillers. Yeah.
The whole sleeping thing, that is potentially scary. Now, the consequences of these things, right? Because again, and I think maybe old-time people will be like, oh God, what's wrong with one drink? The point is, you're pointing to, it's not one drink,
well,
right?
Yeah.
It's at some point, you know, it goes into excess, and it goes into all these other things. For the parents now, you know, because worst case scenario, you could have teenage drivers driving drunk, you could have teenagers publicly intoxicated, you could have teenagers publicly high, not just off of marijuana, which is bad enough, but off of pharmaceuticals or hard drugs.
Right.
And, you know, if it's public, if these things, they could get caught by the police, and then the consequences could be quite severe. To what extent does that also potentially impact the parenting? Because it's not just, first of all, parents also need to understand, it's not just, oh, well, how the authorities view my parenting of one child. Yeah. Because then the authorities will probably have to be like, what about all these other children?
Yeah.
So how does that work? Like, at what point will the state say, hey, we're going to question your parenting, and what's the potential of, you know, your custody being taken away? Because I assume in the extreme cases that can happen.
Yeah, of course. Well, if you're arrested or investigated, the Children's Authority would step in and conduct a welfare assessment of your children to see if they are best suited in your care or if they should be removed. And the children can be removed, placed in a home or placed with relatives. The first option is normally with relatives, so that you know that you have that
Now, one of the things is, at times, the younger child becomes the baby of the family, maybe the golden child, or maybe just the parents are like, well, they need us more. So you, older child, eldest child, you need to be more independent. Now, the problem is that mileage could vary. If you're saying eldest child, 18 years old, be more independent, that's fine. If you're saying eldest child, 13 years old, that's not quite the same thing.
Yeah, and then, you know, as a child, elder child will assist with rearing the younger children.
No, but what if the negligence of that elder child, though, to what degree now, it's a 14-year-old, it's a 15-year-old, we're not supervising enough, we're not ensuring the safety
Exactly.
We're spoon-feeding the 4-year-old because they're 4, but now what is the risk of the authority saying, hey, your track record with the other kids not so bueno. So this 4-year-old, as much as you kind of babying and giving all your attention, we had a we can't take it for granted that you will always do right by the 4-year-old as well.
You wouldn't have a case of abuse against one or neglect against one and leave another child in the home. So you wouldn't have that. So you have consequences where they would remove all the children.
Yeah. Because I think that's one of the things where some parents, they kind of get, you know, maybe the child has special needs, maybe the child is young, maybe the child, for whatever reason, or they just treat the child like a golden child. Doesn't even have to be younger.
I understand,
you know, and they kind of just, they have blinders on, and they don't understand, hey, you might be risking your custody of the golden child by neglecting the other one.
Yeah, exactly. And the police, when they do their investigation, incorporates, and when Special Victims does the investigations, a simultaneous investigation with Children's Authority when it comes to children neglect. And they would deal with the social aspect of it. Is there parenting skills need, is there counseling required? Is there teaching requirements here? Do the parents need to get parenting classes? Is the court required to order anything here? Is social welfare issue here? Is it that they need funding? Is it that they need more counseling from the police have the victim and witness support unit, which is normally a one-off, you know, initial counseling session, or do they need or do they require additional counseling sessions from what they cater for?
And we just had a march casualty event shooting where some of the victims were 19.
Right, very
potentially it could have easily been 17, 16.
Yeah, of course.
Right? And this is one of the things where we can't take it for granted. Oh,
Yeah,
well,
and
they're safe.
Yeah, exactly.
What does that mean?
And I mean, even though children become adults at the age of 18 in Trinidad, and you still need to pursue their welfare even after the age of 18, in the sense of why would they be in a particular area, why would they be lying late at night, you know, and parents, there are parents who take a lot of action to get and worry to get children home inside, out of the dark, securely, and you know, children, as they get older, they tend not to...
It's kind of weird because while we have also kind of said anything that isn't, you go from primary school to university and you get a white-collar job and everything else is seen as lower class, right? We also don't see some of the other consequences of that in that we have basically told 18-year-olds, you're adults.
Right.
We don't really give you all adult responsibility. Go to university, and to some extent, you know, depending on your circumstances, you may have some responsibilities for yourself.
Take a loan.
But all too often, society still treats university students as students, and they don't have certain expectations because arguably, you know, historically, younger people had more responsibility and potentially were more mature, and maybe we have allowed them to not mature individually, right? It's not about, oh, your academics and whatever. No, just like as an individual person thinking about things like safety and stuff. Oh, go to college and live, right? And be wild and go to spring break, or we have our own version of spring break now, and be wild and what have you. And the problem is you're just assuming this is a norm, and your kids are fine because it's normal. But to what extent is it? No, well, some parents, they allow their kids to participate, but they kind of sit them down and give them this is the facts of life, right? And if you mess up your life, we could only help you by so much. And other parents just kind of leave the kids out to the wind and hope they figure it out.
Interestingly, you spoke earlier about the village raising the children. And this is where, and I even think that when we look at our education system, you know, you tend to see the educators now leaning on the TTPS or the police service for more action, for more involvement. And it's not a problem with community outreach. But maybe the village needs to get into the school. Maybe the village needs to attend the PTAs, not just the single mom or the single dad. You know, maybe it's the whole parenting aspect of a child. And especially if the child is recognized to be a bully, you know, you bring in the whole village and say, okay, well, where have we gone wrong? And the village can be the neighbor across the road from the school. Again.
Well, that
is on silent. Huh?
That call was very prophetic. But we do have a caller. Just keep this in the back of your mind. I also just wanted to ask, and I've been meaning to ask you for the last 10 minutes, how much of some of this is just because parents kind of take it for granted? Schools mind the kids, and all that we're not in school.
Yeah, that happens often.
Well, we'll take the call first. We'll get into that after. We have to go on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good day.
Mr. Small, and good morning, ESP Arun.
Morning. Good day. I wonder what you're going to bring up this morning, Mr. Dico Martin.
All right, listen to me. I am going after the Police Service Commission.
Okay.
So those 3 or 5 gentlemen, I think the Police Service Commission has given your new commissioner, Mr. Guerrero, they have given him a lot of things with his hands tied, and it's basically nothing. Because I believe for him to transform the police service, he has to have a new executive. I'm not staying away from that. Too many of the executive at the top has questions to answer, and the police service itself has not been able to discipline them or do the corrective and preventive action. I know the Police Service Commission is responsible for the executive, and under the executive, the first layer is the police commissioner. Look, there is a court case just dismissed Friday, where gang leaders who were charged, they had to dismiss it because the prosecution didn't give the court what they asked for, the statement, 6 of them. They held 2 supposedly gang leaders, one in the prison and one outside, for basically attempting to plot some sort of robbery. They got a phone from the police, from the prison, with no data in it. So the judge dismissed it. So here is where the police has to investigate that. The commissioner of police, because I believe it's going to be junior, well, not junior, people of a lesser hierarchy, the lower level police, that brought this prosecution. We have to investigate if it was a genuine case or if they set up that to just say they basically hold some gang leaders. Because how can you build a case on a phone that has no data? It shows that something is wrong. Or the frightening thing is, they say it has no data. Who might have wiped the phone clean so the information on this gang leader would not have been presented? So you see how serious it is. For me, as an ordinary citizen, I am saying one person had already said the TTPS is the biggest gang. He is now the police PCA director. He said that in a discourse with the British High Commissioner. Are we allowing that stigma to stick with the police service? That is why I'm saying the Police Service Commission, they are not acting and they must go. The other issue with you, Mr. Small, I am seeing the NPTA basically saying the CPEP workers and they're concerned with it. I want to know, during the COVID and all those things, why they were silent. We have so many schools dilapidated, has been fixed, and they were very, very silent. And people have to understand what the NPTA basically stands for. I believe it is a political group, and I'm not going to say the NPTA, the N doesn't stand for national, it stands for me, the North PTA Association. It only focuses on North School. I had vivid evidence, vivid relationship with that dysfunctional PTA, because at another place and time, I was instrumental with the Shogunas Government Primary School. That's the only school, I see the place in the top 5 now, that got a 1, 2, 3 in the SA. It will remain the SA until another school got it. And the NPTA didn't know where the school was. I had to draw a map and send it to them. That lady president who's better half was big in the PLM. I had to draw it. I know how they're North-centric. They don't consider south of the Carnegie Bridge. I'm telling you that. I'm going to have a nice morning.
Thank you, caller. I will say this. I know someone on the PTA, he is south of the Carnegie Bridge, right? Although, for whatever reason, it seems as though they always make him drive north to go to PTA meetings. Maybe anyway. But, so I'm not too sure how true that is or not, or what might cause that result, right? Sometimes that's the second point, where you get a result, the cause of the result that you assume it to be might not be completely the cause, right? It might still be contributing to it. I'm just saying that I don't know. Now, with regards to CPEP, I've noticed something. Ever since they got rid of those contracts, I've seen more people regularly cutting grass in smaller numbers, but less sitting down and watching other people work. And that's all I'm going to say about that. It's funny how when you put a little bit of consequence on people, that, accountability, all of a sudden people figure out, hey, they have this thing called working and we can do it. And one of the things though, it's not just that all CPEP people and all public servants, they don't work. I think part of it too is by holding everybody accountable, in a way that's a reward to those that actually want to work. Because it's like, yeah, we're taking this seriously too. And we're not letting other people coast. And we're not having you kind of trapped in a system where you're being forced to pick up the slack for a whole set of other people that just want to,
But Nicole, I mentioned 2 things that I wanted to bring some consideration to quickly. One, the dismissal of a case. I don't know what he was speaking about.
It was in, I believe it's today's papers or on the papers over the weekend.
Right. But I want members of the public to also understand that with the JIPA, the recent, well, it isn't recent, but in the past, with the past amendments, recent amendments, all that matter is dismissed, or well, we consider dismissed. It might just have been discharged, and it could be, the information could be relayed, it could be reindicted. So the persons could be reindicted. So not necessarily that it means the case dismissed means that nothing can go on in the court.
Right.
And the other thing is that he spoke about a device being wiped.
Yeah, it was a part of the same case.
Right.
That is speculation because that's not in the report.
Oh.
The key piece of evidence is a cell phone,
Right.
but the cell phone had no data.
Right.
So to some extent, if it literally has no record of anything on it, then, you know, it's just a physical, this is the phone,
Right.
and the phone records are probably not even necessary to have the phone with the phone records.
And it can be considered that, it should be considered that a device can be wiped remotely and not necessarily.
Exactly.
Yeah,
well, I mean, I guess to some extent this question was open-ended.
Yeah.
But also I think this potentially, we don't know, I see a version of events where the police are like, look, we did our best, but our hands are tied with regards to evidence collection, so the case is stalled.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
now, arguably, though, this is one of those examples where the police will show up and then they say, or take too long or something like that, and the judge is like, this is bad and we should end this case or whatever. And I think if it is things like technicalities like that the police run into stumbling blocks that they can't overcome on your own,
Right.
then better communication should be had, because I feel as though it's shortfalls in legislation, and we need to understand what the issues are to then demand the politicians, hey, go in the Red House and fix this criminal legislation.
But a police officer cannot come to court and not issue, a judge or magistrate can issue a warrant for the police officer.
That's an executive
Yeah.
issue.
No,
Anyway,
they
we have
can bring
move
them
on
to
the
court.
line. So we'll take the call. Good morning, caller, you're on air.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Sean, this is a separate issue. This is a clarion call to WASA, Sean, from the residents of First Caledonia Road, Sohan Trace, Eastern Main Road, Lavantel, opposite the Fernandez compound. To WASA to please, we have not had a supply for approximately 5 days of pipe-borne water, and we are calling on WASA to please address the situation. I was told yesterday when I called the authority that we were supposed to get a supply yesterday. That has not occurred. All our reservoirs are at full capacity. So I don't understand what is the problem. It has to be a human issue, and I'm calling on WASA to deal with it immediately. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, caller. It could be a water pressure issue, not to give an excuse, because then there's questions, is there a leak that WASA doesn't know about? One of the things is maybe they basically turn the water flow on, but if the water hasn't been able to repressurize all the way, then depending on where you are on the line, in order of where the water pressure reaches, right, you may not get water pressure. I don't know how long it'll take. Usually, I think whenever WASA has those big exercises with the Carney station, I think it's like a day. So the fact that you're into the next day might be a sign that it's not something as, dare I say, quote unquote, mundane as that. I'm not saying that it is mundane, but it's just that anything else might be more severe, right? Yeah. But they said, well, yesterday he'll get water yesterday.
Okay.
So it might not be as mundane as, well, it's just a water pressure problem to build back up to get to him. It might be something worse, which is why I'm speculating maybe there's a leak somewhere or some other problem and they haven't necessarily fixed it yet. And therein lies an interesting conundrum for the current government, because they changed the CEO, right? Now, it's interesting. To what extent is the PNM accusation that the UNC is taking credit for work that the PNM started? Because once you start doing that, if the government has done that, once you start doing that, you can't blame the outgoing administration for the problems anymore. Because it can't be that, look at all the good things we did while we still have these things inherited. Like, unless you have detailed receipts and you could go line by line as to why that is true, which is very difficult, you can't have it both ways. So you can't start taking credit for all the stuff being done now, if that's what the government is doing, but still try to pass on blame. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes, as well as the question of did the change in executive leadership affect something, maybe some planned maintenance, I don't know, right? Or maybe some planned maintenance was put on hold, I don't know. And now they're kind of caught not knowing exactly how to communicate it. Or there's a breakdown somewhere, and because of the election and just the uncertainty of that, the reporting structure of Wesn, who was fired because of all of these managers that the PNM brought in that the UNC didn't agree with. And I understand that. That is not the problem. The problem is if you want to change things in a major way like that and you don't necessarily put all things in place for a smooth transition within the transition of government, you have a smooth transition of Wesn leadership, you might get things falling through the cracks. This might be one of them. Maybe, maybe not. I assume Wesn is aware because you've called. Hopefully they're aware. But again, we don't know for sure if the reporting structures to go up the chain is working so that whoever has the authority enough to deal with it knows what's going on. That's just one of the weird things about large organizations. Sometimes the problem is, well, the people to actually make decisions, the weight never gets to them. And it's not that they don't want to do anything about it. It's that for whatever reason, they just don't get the message. Sometimes it's their fault that they don't get the message. Sometimes it's other people's fault. We don't know. We don't know. So we had to wait and see how this goes on. But this is one of those things, I don't know if some investigative journalists will look to pick up some sort of sensational story and hopefully not over-sensationalize it. Now, I do feel sorry for you, but I hate to say this. There's probably some parts of the country are saying 5 days, only 5 days, that's not a big deal. We go 5 weeks, 5 months, you know, so.
I've never experienced not having water in my entire lifetime.
Ever?
Ever. And I lived along the East-West corridor.
I mean, you've gone at least a week without water.
No, never.
4 days?
Never. Maybe
you
one
got to
day.
be way up near a pumping station or something. Anyway,
No.
listen, not everybody blessed like you, Arun. Okay, we'll take Dabity first. Good morning, call you on here.
Morning, son. Morning, Superintendent Azure.
Yes, sir. Good.
Son, I live in a particular similar situation as the ASP. It has been years before we even start having water regulated. And I have 2 tanks, and sometimes I don't even know when water go. So along the East-West corridor here, in Davidi, here where I live, and I guess surrounding areas, we don't have that problem.
Mm-hmm.
I want to speak this morning on the police service, and you know, I think that the length of time that people have been speaking on the police service, that by now they should have gotten it right. They have done everything to introduce all these people and them like Arjun and Ashraf and what you call them, the DCP, Archie. Well, it started with her. And there's an inspector in the Dabadi area and Malabar who's doing an excellent job. I don't know her name. But all these communication officers shown they are doing excellent jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Before we never had what you call the district policing council. You have the police youth club. And these police officers have been doing extremely excellent job. So you know what's the problem in the police service right now? The executive. And the new commissioner.
That's exactly what Digger Martin said.
And the first time I really, because I always asked Digger Martin to come up with something, say something good about the police service, and he could never do it. But
well, he did not include the commissioner. He said the commissioner was being, it was too heavy of a weight with the current executive. It was limiting the new commissioner. So he didn't include
and
the commissioner.
And I agree. And not wanting to be sexist this morning, the female executive officers, do you see them fighting crime regardless of what portfolio they have? This man, the commissioner, really need help. And something should be done with respect to the executive officers of the police service. And until that is done, we're swimming against the tide. Thanks for the opportunity, gentlemen, and you all have a nice day. Yeah?
Thank you, caller. I fully understand the sentiment both of you suggested. I hesitate to fully agree with it, but on a macro level, it's just one of those concepts. It's like, yes, you want a change. It's hard to change something if you keep some of the old people, unless you have a specific reason.
But the police service is basically a pyramid. It's built in such a way that the higher you go in the hierarchy,
yeah, it's less.
It's the senior officers, it's less senior officers, but nonetheless, they have more experience. So you have, in the sense that they've gone through a number of...
So in theory, it works that way.
In theory, it may work that way, but nonetheless...
Don't repeat everything I say.
Nonetheless, to just say that the executive is
No, but this is like when you have a legendary Hall of Fame coach of a sports team.
Right.
But it's like, we're 10 years in,
right.
We need a change. And it's like, it's not that you're a bad coach, it's that to change, we can't keep you, right? And I think DCP Benjamin might be a casualty of that concept. It's not that he's bad at his job, it's that in order for the institution to change, because part of it is the perception and the trust and the belief.
Right, but what I was trying to say is that all police officers from enlistment to now, to the executive, they go through training and they go through a process where they are built for leadership.
You see, the problem is people tend to be promoted up to the point where they start to fail. And that's in all organizations, I'm not just talking police, private as well. We have San Fernando waiting on the line. Good morning, caller, you're on the air. That's just the system of our labor market. Caller, good morning.
Morning, Sean. Good morning, ESPR.
Good day, sir.
Sean, I listened to you this morning speak about the PH taxis.
Yeah.
And I think you're a bit off on when you talk about PH taxis in the sense that, let me say this, and I'm sure ESP Arun could attest to this. PH cars in taxis in Trinidad and Tobago, well, in Trinidad, let me speak for Trinidad. PH cars are the main drivers of the taxi business all day, not only at night, Sean.
Okay.
Yeah.
All day.
Okay.
I have seen this progress where there's less and less H cars on the road. You come out the road and you put your hand, who you think blowing it is a P car. 12 o'clock in the day, 6 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the evening. That is those are the people that really run the transportation business in Trinidad, Sean. The PH cars. And it has been since Jack Warner time, when Jack Warner basically said,
yeah.
Right, you remember that?
Yeah,
and
vaguely, but yes.
It is about time that we bring some sanity in the system. Now, there's an issue where when you have to go to get a taxi badge, there are certain things that you have to do. Get a police record and those other things. And some people may not be able to get a record. But not everybody. So I think there need to be some new regulations with respect to that. And I think it is about putting systems in place and making sure the system works.
Yeah,
and this is not up to the police service alone.
Yeah.
This is something that the state has to do. Has to have make a decision. This is what we're going to focus on, and come up with something where these guys can get it. The taxi, or when I go to other countries, you have taxis there. They painted in a color. They have no other choice. I mean, sometimes they may have. Okay, I've seen it in Dominican Republic and a couple of places where they have at night they have PH cars. I've seen it in places like El Salvador when I used to work there and stuff. But in the main, the taxis they have a color. If you want to be a taxi in Trinidad, they have to say your car to be painted this. There are no two ways about it.
Yeah.
They have to bring some sanity to the system. But John, PH cars are what run the taxi business in Trinidad all day, every day. Let me say about the police service executive. I hesitate with trying to paint this brush over the full executive. Ms. Martin has some issues there. I understand that we're saying some of them, some people not they're not visible. But the police service executive, okay, you would throw the blame on them because they're the ones that run the police service. And if you have issues in the service, then you have to go to the top. However, I still think that the police service commission has some. If you're looking at management of the police service, they need to be put into the mix as well. I am still waiting for them to make a decision on Ms. Martin, because the police commissioner handed it over to them, and I disagree with the police commissioner in sending them this information rather than telling them. I would like you all to, I would like to send Ms. Martin on leave until this investigation is finished. It's not a good look for the executive of the service. And anything that comes out of this with Ms. Martin, in a particular way, the public going to say, you see, they're covering for one another.
Yeah, that's
when it may not be like that, because I don't. But you don't know. People see Mr. Simon there, who they appointed. People don't know Mr. Simon, so they could say, I am one person that I'm amazed that they keep using Mr. Simon as a football. Mr. Simon used to be a ACP before, you know. Am I correct, Mr. ESPR room?
Yeah, he's a ACP.
Wasn't he on the executive as an acting, and then they moved him out, and then now they bring him back?
Yeah, he was acting deputy commissioner before.
Yeah, that's right. And I can't understand why they have somebody of that caliber using him as a football. He seems not to let it affect his public appearances. The only time I saw him in disgust, in my opinion, was when the second time he appeared on the joint select with Ms. Christopher there, and he seemed to have decided that I'm not the commissioner, so they do ask, I not answer nothing today. That was his whole demeanor.
Okay.
But I am surprised that gentleman has not been selected. I don't know if he put his name in the hat, but has not been selected as the commissioner of police. Anyway, here's my contribution. Please have a good day, gentlemen.
Thank you, Paula. I will speculate on the current commissioner. I think he was selected on the strength of his record working with certain aspects of the crime fighting apparatus, of which I think that includes his whatever work he did with international partners and how key that is moving forward to get us the resources to deal with transnational crime. Also, at least so far, even with regards to the prom pickup photo incident, he has been more transparent and forthcoming with communication. I don't know if I would agree with him revealing that it was from either the vehicle was attached to the individual ACP or was from his authority, right? To reveal that information to the public. But the point is he attempted to communicate to the public, which is, you know, better than a lot of public officials in the last 10 years. I'll just say it that way. But here's the thing, though. If you want to blame the Police Service Commission, then to some extent, how could you say, well, it's not the executive, it's the Service Commission, but all the Service Commission does is select the executive. So then if they did a bad job, what you're indirectly saying, the incumbent executive mistakes were made and we need to rectify that. You can't say, well, the Service Commission did a bad job. But, you know, some of these guys, you know, I mean, maybe you could make an argument for some, but it's one of those weird things about leadership and psychology where if you want to really tell an organization we're making a change, it's hard to say that when you keep some of the people from the previous administration.
The gist of what I'm getting is that, I mean, it's very little I could say on the executive.
Of course,
very
yes.
little. But
I would advise you not to say anything at all.
Right.
But
The gist I get from the members of the public is that apparently the team that should have gone in with the commissioner should have been a team he built. Yeah.
Yeah,
But as I said before, the officers in the TTPS are geared and trained towards leadership.
I think part of the problem is it's because we haven't seen enough from. Yes, there are those like Martin where there's a lot of negative connotations because of the investigation as well as other things. But for the rest, the public, I think, hasn't seen enough positives. Right. So it's easy to say, well, look, let's just have a clean break, you know? Right. Because there's also the fact that, look, he used to be their subordinate. Now he's their boss. Right. Like, a lot of times, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of case studies with regards to sports teams, private enterprise, and government entities where it's like, how do you transition to new leadership? What should be done? When it's good to retain, when it's not good to retain. And I can't fault the public for, I'm not saying that I 100% agree with it.
Right, I understand you.
But I could see where it's a viable course of action, right? And that's just one of the things at that level, when you're the CEO, when you're on the board, when you're part of the executive team of a private company, and things don't go well, it's, in a way, they move on faster from you than, say, technician number 4.
I've actually worked personally with at least 1 or 2 of the members of the executive, and they have great leadership skills that I've seen. And when you look at the emanating out of the SOU, when you see the results, you see some leadership qualities where they were able to reduce the crime rate.
I mean, yes, to be fair to Benjamin, and that's why I'm saying I would suspect if eventually he's gotten rid of, let's just say, for whatever reason, I suspect it's not about job performance and as much as just a casualty of, well, we want a total wipe because.
But he is actually, although he's acting DCP, he's actually a full assistant commissioner.
He's not a full DCP. I thought he was a full DCP.
Yes, but he held, before that, he held the role of assistant commissioner.
Right, yeah,
As opposed to Ms. Martin and Ms. Jones.
Or that went from the lower ranks and up.
Lower rank, yeah.
Right. Sam from the back, quick.
Yes, Sean.
Yeah.
My name is Pierre. Sean, why I put the Police Service Commission embroiled in management of the police service? Let me say this. How have you? There are many times you have seen and you hear in the media that the police service, the police executive appear before the Joint Select Committee, right? Have you ever heard that the police service executive appear or have meetings with the Police Service Commission? Have you ever heard that in the public?
That's a good point.
And that is my point.
That's a good point.
Their job is not just to appoint the executive and that is the be all and end all. That is they are the Police Service Commission there to manage the executive of the police service. And that is why I put them in the mix. They have a lot. To if you listen to Dr. Diosaran and understand that he has always been at the behest of the Police Service Commission, not doing enough in their position to manage the police service.
I don't disagree with that part. I'm just saying the part where you said it was the implication was you wanted to move away from the executive and put the spotlight more on the Service Commission. But in my mind, it's like the more you view the Service Commission as a problem, the more the executive they appointed has to be scrutinized. That's just.
Well, I understand, but all I'm saying is that they have a part to play, and their seemingly lack of management of the. I thought when they brought this retired judge, what's her name? I forget her name now. She was going to shake up the whole thing, and nothing happened. Nothing happened to the executive. That Police Service Commission that needs to be revamped.
Mr. Sanford, I know the implication is politics interfered with the police service at that time. That's the implication of the events that led up to the selection of that Police Service Commission. That's all I'll say about that. Now, I will say this. I did want to, since you're back on the line, but we don't have time to take another call. So I'll just say this. I don't know if it's proper for the commissioner to basically say anything to the Service Commission on what they should do about the DCP or not. I don't think he could make demands of them or insist that they suspend DCP Martin. That has to come from the commission themselves, because that's basically like telling your boss what to do, right? Because they're there to ensure he does his job and to discipline him if necessary. So he can't then now make demands of them. That I don't think that would be proper. I'm not sure if there's any regulations against it. I just don't think it would be proper. That said, it goes back to what you just said. the decision to suspend or not, and again, I think a lot of this came down to politics with regards to how Erla was treated, with regards to how a lot of, like all of the events before, right? And now they got a lot of heat for suspending Erla because it was not viewed as one that was right in doing so, given how she was arrested and how all of that went down. And I do wonder if they're just kind of having a knee-jerk reaction. Oh, well, we got in trouble the last time we did it, so let's not do it this time. Don't mind us totally different circumstances. Don't mind that we're not necessarily communicating to the public over why we're making these decisions that's going to affect their everyday lives, because this is about the executive or police service while we have a crime problem. So it goes back to, is the Service Commission doing enough? And I think essentially you have more or less given us the crux of the matter with regards to those issues right there, right? Except, I'll give them this. So far, the top of the merit list seemed to have been a good choice. I don't know if there were better candidates underneath them, but if they were, like, it's kind of, I have a hard time believing that, given what the talent pool was like. The last go around, we selected a substantive commissioner of police. Allegedly, the implications of, given the results, I'm not going to spell it out any further. Now, with regards to regularizing the taxi service or making it proper, I'll say this, and you could say if you agree with it or not, but I would imagine you would. The one thing that I wouldn't compromise on taxis becoming registered is whatever the regulations are for safety, right, well, and law enforcement.
The main difference between the taxi service and the private hire and the taxi service is insurance, where you are covered as a passenger as opposed in a taxi for more money as opposed to a private vehicle.
No, but to register as a taxi, don't you have some kind of checks that you have to face or no?
Of course, your vehicle has to be properly equipped to be a taxi.
Right.
It has to be registered as a taxi. It has to fulfill all the safety requirements.
Right. Anything about criminal precautions,
course, yeah.
Good character and stuff?
Yeah, you have to pass the background check. You have to the certificate of character. I think you have to pass a medical with vision and whatnot.
You see, like, these are things I don't think you could compromise on. The
school roadworthiness
of the car, insurance for passengers, your vision.
Even in, when you look at the standards of the developed countries where they introduce like the Uber, if we only use the term Uber, if I could use the term Uber.
Yeah.
Right, as opposed to Trinidad where you have the private hire service, PH, we call it PH, and then you have the introduction of TT rideshare and these private entities working with PH vehicles because they don't use taxi service alone.
Well, to some extent, I think one of the things in London, London has a very demanding, to become a black cab driver in London.
Right, you have to be,
There's some crazy exam where you have to like know the whole city inside and out. It's like, it takes years to study for some madness, right? And they're like, or you be an Uber driver and you just do it. And they're upset about that because they have this burden that Uber drivers don't. And I would imagine there's now questions of, do our regulations cover things like TT rideshare or anything like that?
No,
it
becomes, but TT rideshare is basically PH.
And again,
it's basically PH, unless you're actually operating a taxi.
PH and TT rideshare is essentially opening up opportunity for either the driver or well, for you, I'm not going with employment. It's opening up opportunities for either the driver or passengers to be victims of crime.
Of course, but it doesn't negate that it happens with the taxi service as well.
I know, but at least with the taxi service, there's more things in place to try to combat against that. In part because everybody should be registered, so it's not just random.
Now, the TTPS perspective is that we must follow the rules and the law. So we must.
So when you see PH things
we have
happening,
to issue tickets. We have to chastise them. We have to deal with it. But in terms and the regulations cater for the taxis, official taxi service.
That's what I said. I said, look, this is the problem when you have this informal thing to try to work around, right?
We understand.
The police have to draw a line somewhere.
Somewhere,
And that's what I said early in the morning. So I'm like, I can't fault the police for doing this. They can't just leave it as a free-for-all.
No, you can't. And then there is room, as you said, for criminals to operate within the PH service easier as opposed to the taxi service.
That's the thing. It's not going to eliminate it, but you want to try to limit as much as possible, right?
Of course,
It's not too dissimilar to, that's why you have the cameras and the lights and the locks.
I
remember, it's not just about having a gun.
There was a case in the West, when I was working in the West, where we had a PH driver. He was, I wonder if it was a taxi. I can't remember if he was actually working a taxi, but nonetheless, he used to pick up female passengers and rape them. And we had to, that was one way we were able to hold him.
God, but I wish I could have eased into that. You know, he just went straight and he used to just, you know, pick up women and, okay. Yeah. Right, we will close with something a little less stark. With regards to water, I'll just say this because you said you never had water problems.
Never.
Dabity said he's never had it, but he said he had tanks. Do you have tanks?
Yeah.
Right, this is the thing. You don't know.
No, I have tanks now.
Right, but there was a time when you didn't.
I didn't, and I never had issues with water.
The thing is, for all my life we've had tanks, and I live in the north as well, right? Yeah. For all my life we've had tanks, and there have been, we know of times when, you know, we got to that 5-day mark for whatever reason, maintenance or whatever, or just not a lot of water that year, right? So, and you know, we're in Port of Spain basically, right? So. I think you're an anomaly, to be honest.
No, I remember, and the tank thing is a recent thing. I remember as most of my adult, young age life, I remember that in growing up, we used to only have, water used to only cut off like once for the year.
The thing is,
we expected once for the year.
Everybody's situation is going to be different because the water supply is not one all-encompassing water system. There's not enough pumps in the world to keep that thing pressurized if everything was connected, right? Yeah. So what's going to happen is as the East-West corridor built up, that's why you're going to have water problems because to some extent did it keep up with new developments. And like with regards to the extreme west in Chagaramas, from what I understand, they did expand the water supply and then someone decided I'll build a water park. And then the residents got basically a net zero gain out of the situation. So things like that happen. Just saying. I don't know what, maybe there was approval, maybe there wasn't. I don't know who dropped the ball on that one, but somebody probably did, you know, adding a water park is not a small thing. Anyway, no offense to the operator of that park. But just to say that I understand, relying on tanks doesn't mean that you know, you don't have water problems. You're compensating it with your own private investment, right? We started with one tank, we had to get a second tank, right? Luckily, we only ever had to buy 2 pumps. We had the original pump that lasted forever until it failed, and then we had to get a new pump, right? So, to what extent does everybody have that money to sink into that kind of thing? I don't know, right? It's not a bad investment because it isn't just, you know, they last long. But still, it's not cheap, and then you have to have the space. So if you're renting and your landlord don't have tanks, what are you going to do? You know what I mean?
Oh, that might be the issue. Yeah.
That might be, yeah. So, and again, this is all the bad example, the good example. This is all the north, this is all the east-west corridor, right? Your mileage may vary. Part of it also with water supply is where you are on the line and the water pressure, right? So by me, we have a lot of low pressure. We have a lot of low pressure where I live, a lot, or we have a lot of low pressure. Don't mind we have booster stations right down the road, but we have a lot of low pressure. So having the tanks helps deal with that, right? Yeah, you're like, this is all Greek to me, but it's just one of those things. So I don't know to what extent we want to give WASA kudos, but at least for my area, it's more than manageable most of the time, right? So I'll just end with that. Want to thank the callers for calling in. Want to thank ASP Arun for joining me once again.
Just remind members of the public, supervise your kids, please.
Yeah, so get a relative. Yeah. Send them to our cousin's house. That's what my mom did with me. I only realized in later life, oh, she poured me off to my aunts and cousins, right? But you know, it was fine. I mean, that's what you do. That's what you do. That's the village, right?
Pay a babysitter.
You pay a babysitter. Some people are like, I don't have money for that. Hey, there's the police youth club. Or other extracurricular activities. Yes, they cost money, but 1, they help with the child's development. 2, they help with the child's socialization. 3, it keeps them engaged and supervised.
It have school camps. It have camps. So that's summer camps. Rainy season
Your
camps.
child have friends. Your child friend have parents. Everybody in the same boat. You take the kids today. I take the kids tomorrow. They take the kids the next day. Figure it out. Carpool, childcare pool. I don't know, something. Just don't abandon them. All right, with that said, stay safe. Remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other. Never forget it's nice to be nice, so we can see each other tomorrow. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Get ready for the biggest business-to-business event of the year. The Trade and Investment Convention, happening on July 17th to 19th at the Centre of Excellence in the Koya. Doors open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on business days and 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Consumer Day. Dress code in effect for business days. Park and ride available from Constantine Park and UETGR North Car Park all days, and NAMDEVCO on the 17th and 19th. Sponsored by the Ministry of Trade, Investment and Tourism, Exim Bank, Balroop Group and Bmobile Business.
My name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist, and we are committed to making good private health care affordable.
For all your medical needs, including dental, radiology, laparoscopy, behavioral and mental health, along with many other services, contact us for more information at 235-5479.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Low energy? Heart concerns? Migraines slowing you down? It's time to take control of your health. Join Wellness Unlocked, the series that brings expert advice and real solutions for a healthier you. In our latest episode, learn how Jameson CoQ10 can help support heart health, boost energy, and even reduce migraines. Get the science, the stories, and the steps to power up your health with CoQ10. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and start your wellness journey today.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com. Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
WESN.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I'm Yumi Maknish. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Beckles asks PNM supporters for forgiveness. The Education Ministry plans sustained help for underperforming SEA students. A man was shot and beaten outside a nightclub in critical condition. Brutally beaten inmate awarded $140,000 in damages. And internationally, Gaza's ceasefire talks resume as Netanyahu meets Trump in Washington. Now for the details. PNM political leader Penelope Beckles has asked supporters for forgiveness, acknowledging that the party's previous leadership made mistakes. Speaking at the Central Regional Office on July 5th, she said rebuilding and reconnecting with citizens are now priorities if the PNM is to unseat the UNC in the next general election. Beckles said voters sent a clear message in the April 28th internal election when the PNM lost about 100,000 votes. She criticized the UNC government, claiming thousands of job losses in just 7 weeks, particularly through the termination of 300 CPAP contractors. Former Minister Dr. Nayan Gasby-Dolly described the dismissals as politically motivated and accused Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissess of targeting vulnerable women. The Ministry of Education has unveiled plans to support the 6,043 students who scored below 50% in this year's SE exam. Minister Dr. Michael Dowlath says customized strategies and year-round interventions will replace short-term remedial programs, which previously saw poor attendance and limited results. Key elements include literacy and numeracy support, transition programs for Form 1 students, teacher training, parenting workshops, and home visits. The ministry is also reviewing the school code of conduct and considering reintroducing continuous assessment. Dowlap says any changes will be research-driven and aim to improve fairness and student outcomes. A 26-year-old man is in critical condition after being shot and beaten early Saturday morning outside a nightclub on Ariapita Avenue. Toric Gill of Harp Place was attacked around 5:20 a.m. by a group of men in a white Toyota Aqua. One of the attackers shot him in the stomach before fleeing. Police officers nearby responded quickly and took Gill to the Port of Spain General Hospital. He sustained a gunshot wound, head injuries, and leg lacerations and remains in critical condition. No arrests have been made and investigations continue. The state has been ordered to pay $140,000 in compensation to former inmate Randall Ramuta, who was assaulted by prison officers and inmates during a 2017 stay at Golden Grove Prison. Justice Ricky Rahim upheld Ramuta's claim, noting medical reports confirmed permanent injuries and trauma. Ramuta testified he was beaten with batons over 3 days and ignored when he cried out in pain. The state denied the allegation, citing a lack of records and delays in reporting. However, the court ruled Ramuta's account credible and condemned what it called the barbaric and clandestine treatment in prison. Internationally, efforts to end the 21-month Gaza war may be gaining traction as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu meets U.S. President Donald Trump in Washington. Talks resumed in Qatar on a U.S.-backed plan for a 60-day truce, staged hostage release, and partial troop withdrawals. Israel has agreed to key conditions while Hamas responded positively but raised concerns over aid management and the timeline for Israeli troop exits. Despite cautious optimism, families of hostages and civilians in Gaza remain wary. Humanitarian conditions continue to worsen with malnutrition, fuel shortages, and growing frustration on both sides. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
His name is Felix Dean. He's my guest on this edition of the program. His story became one in the media in Trinidad and Tobago a couple of years ago. It was featured in a review that Dr. Sheila Rampersad was conducting with people in prison. It turned out that he had been there almost 40 years at the time because he had killed someone in Palo Seco, which is where he's from, in an issue in which the story is heartrending when you hear it and when you hear what he went through in the prisons in that period. On many occasions, he'd been up for review, and the process just kept getting stalled. And that's where I came in a couple of years ago, starting to write about, put a focus on it. He's here, he's been released, and he's looking at a new lease in life. We're talking about life after a period in prison such as that. Good to see you.
Yes.
I want to ask, why do you think that you were released from prison after 42 years?
Well, I believe the reason why I was released, I believe it is the effort that the outside the Mercy Committee, because they had ignored every petition that for a review. They keep promising, and in fact all review were never heard. And one day I was sitting in the prison about 4 or 5 years ago, and this woman came and asked for Felix Dean. And she introduced herself as Dr. Sheila Rampersad, a journalist. Yeah. And she heard my plea, and her heart goes out to me. And she wished to do an interview on me if I'm willing to give one. That is inside the prison. However, I said, yes, I am willing. And it started from there. I started to tell her about, she asked me about my condition, my present condition at that time, and my past, about the prison life, and I told her what it was and what it's like now, and I do never know what it will be like, because somewhere I believe I will die in this institution.
You thought that you would?
Yeah, I thought there was no way out. I thought I had lost in prison and can't find my way out, because all the effort my relatives, which is my sisters, my brothers, and certain members of the community where I'm from, even the village council in that area. Well, how I know this, because my sister went about with her daughter from house to house, from Palo Seco to almost Erin, asking people if they will plead for my release after, but those days wasn't 40, was not 42, it was about 30 years. And people were so amazed, they want to know, I thought your brother was outside. I can't understand. And people said, this is what my sister told me. People were amazed because, I mean, they knew me, and those who did not know me, which I left small, got an adult. And they say, your brother cannot be in prison, because the Trinidad and Tobago government or the public, together with the world, had get together and asked to free Mandela. Mandela spent 28 years in prison, and they believed it was an inhuman thing. And knowing that I am in prison 30 years at that time, and they're not considering what they just joined with the world asking to free Mandela.
All right, talk a little bit about why you were sent to prison in the first place.
Well, what happened, I was with a woman they call Marjorie Singh, who had 2 children for me.
That was not your wife?
No, it was how we call it, an outside woman.
Yeah, so you had sort of 2 families, two
yes,
situations.
I apart from having my wife who have 3 sons for me, I got involved with this young woman, and we had a relationship.
Well, you were 30-something at the time?
I was 29 years of age, because that relationship.
Yeah, tell me if I'm wrong, but the story that I followed up on was that, so you had this thing going with, is Marjorie, you said is her name?
Marjorie Singh, they call her Charmaine.
And you used to give her money to hold for you, quite apart from giving her what you wanted to give her.
Yeah, but what happened, I was a lucky fellow. I used to work with well services, all the oil companies, through contractors, and it so happened that my luck stick when they told us they want us to go into Barbados to drill wells. That is well services for Bmobile Oil Company, and I was lucky to be one of the men of the crew to go. And I started to go since 1979. And you know, in that situation, we worked for a lot of money. And I used to hide. I didn't want my wife to know about this set of money. So having Charmaine with me, you know, I used to give her, say, put this in a bank account for me. And look, this is for yourself, you know. And it went on, so it was going all right. And every time I travel, I used to buy duty-free jewelry, you know, things, and or even clothing, and take it for her, because I really love her.
Right, and she said one day you went to get some of that money, and she couldn't account for it.
One day my married wife told me the refrigerator she have home had broke out, and they say it can't be refilled with gas. So this was coming to Mother's Day, which is the 9th of May, 1982. That was Mother's Day. So I wanted to surprise my wife, which is Kamala, with a refrigerator on Mother's Day. So I went down about prior to that, sometime in about the 3rd or the 4th of May, I came back from Barbados, and I went to Charmaine the relationship was very good, and I told her, I want you to take out $3,000 for me, or from my account. I told her what it was for, because my wife knew, and I was with her, and you know, sometimes my children, with the 3 boy children I have with Kamala, will come down by Charmaine and spend time. Sometimes the 2 children Charmaine have with me, I will when I'm there, Kamala, this time I bring them, and the relationship between the 2 women was not that bad. So cheating, you know, it was not nice.
Yeah, go ahead. But okay, I want to get
I asked Charmaine to take out this $3,000 so that I will buy a fridge for Kamala for Mother's Day. And when she told me come back in about 3 days' time, she will have time to go in the bank. Well, I went down there for that, on that purpose, 3 days after. And when I went there, I saw the little shack I had built for locked up. And I said, ask the neighbor, which was a girl in Colorado, where Charmaine, if she know where she gone. She said, all she know that Charmaine pack up and take the 2 children that bring she clothing, and the children clothing and left. She don't know where Charmaine gone. But I had a belief if she went by her mother, because we had a little misunderstanding prior to that, and she went by her mother. And, you know, going there and begging her to come.
All right, so we have to get to the point where something happened. There was a confrontation.
Yeah, yes. And she was by her mother, so I went there and I asked her about this money thing and thing. She told me she will go back. So, but I said, well, where I meet you? She said, I'm spending some time by Mommy. So, it happened on the 9th of May now. I went back and asked, well, I'm not waiting for this money. Look, today's Mother's Day, and I want to buy this thing. And she told me, Mommy borrowed the money. And Mommy, I said, well, what about your little money? She said, well, she brought out the 2 bank books and showed me $10, $10. They abused the money within their luxurious life, and I was holding a baby, which was Felicia. She was 1 year and 8 months. That was my daughter, standing in the living room. Back up, I was jamming a furniture, a chair, and it had no cushion. And within this argument, we started to argue, and the brother-in-law pushed me. I had no step in back room, so I fell with the baby and I crashed through the chair. You know, I mashed up the people's chair then by my fall.
But the story was, the part of the story was that somebody approached you with a cutlass and you were able to get it away.
And when it started, after that, a fight started, and with all the sisters and the brother-in-law, and we ended up in the kitchen. I fell along the step, but the house was a short house, so it was not no great fall. It was about 3 feet high. And I believe it was Charmaine. Somebody had a cutlass, and I get away that cutlass, and in that way I chopped.
You just went.
Yeah, and it was Charmaine I chopped, and Mr. Andy, I know I murdered Charmaine. I don't know why. I don't know.
There's a saying for it, you lost it at that point.
Yeah, I don't know
how
why.
I interpret it is that you got in a situation where you had to defend yourself.
I had no sense of reasoning because I was so angry. And I remember chopping Charmaine twice. I can tell you, I did it. But 14 chops, I don't know how I did that. And I don't know why the pathologist is saying that Charmaine had 14 chops. I don't know who. It is I who did it, but what state of mind was I in?
Yeah. So how it came to the point where you became a candidate for release from prison, which is another story as to what happened and what didn't happen in the way that...
About 2012 now, after my sentence of death was commuted, to life imprisonment for the rest of my natural life, and serving that time, I was brought to the MSP prison, and they had
maximum security prison.
Yes, and due to that, they had a lot of programs were now opening, and I attended the programs and cultural program and church program, you know, like anger management, work tour. This was my doctor, Palmer. She was some sociologist, tell you about how to overcome hurdles, criteria thinking, and I did most of these programs. We got certificates for participating, and due to that, they tell us that they're gonna take up our 4 years review. And after
You'd been in prison how long by that time?
By that time, well, from 2000 to 1982, right? I was in prison when I came out from in 1987 I was convicted, sent to the death row, and in 1994 my sentence was commuted, and I spent 6 years there, and I came to the maximum security prison that have to be
right.
7, and 5 is 12, and 12 and 6 is 8. I spent 18 years before I was brought to the maximum security prison.
I went in there. Commuted
yeah, I went in there at the age of 36.
Yeah.
So if I spent 17 years before, at the time of the maximum security prison, there were no programs or anything. It happened when we went to the maximum security prison. So in the year about 2012, they told us that they are looking for men to pardon due to the mercy committee.
This process started in 2012 when you got into that group. You said the authorities said they were looking to pardon.
Yes.
And it took 12 years for that to happen. Because we're now in 2024.
Yes. And they started to take a biosocial report on all who were eligible to be pardoned, all who did be a candidate to be pardoned. And they had my family, they wanted something more. So my sister, who was with me from 1982, and the rest of the family, but by the time her daughter had grown to a woman, so she had accompanied my sister with my wife, Kamala, because the relationship was built back in a way of sorrow for me. And they went about the village in Palo Seco, all through Rancho, literally the village council, and the people in that village who used to, how you may call him, president of the village council, we went to school together. His name was Nolly Bacchus, and then you had
but so there were people on your side?
And my sister was asking them that the prison wants something, that after all these years in prison, how the community feel that if I integrate back, what they think that should happen, if I'll be accepted among them.
And that happened. The people signed.
Yeah, they were so amazed. Everyone was pleading for my release.
I want to bring up something you told me in a discussion we had, that during that period in prison, your wife Kamala came to see you.
Oh yeah.
And you told her the way things going, she should seek a divorce, and she told you go to hell.
That was earlier. That was I got condemned in 1987. And when I went in the condemned, I realized that is the end of the journey, because I am going to be executed. And having the Christian people who visit the condemned, you know, I start to interact with them, and I say, look, since I'm going to be executed, let me seek some peace with my Creator. turn a new leaf in life, you know. And I made arrangement. I asked them if I should be, if they will rebaptize me. You see, I was an Anglican from a child, and I wanted to walk this road to come into the gallows with the love of God still upon me. However, well, that did materialize. I did get baptized, and within that period, about a year after I was baptized, Kamla used to visit me on every 3 months, you know, because she caught up with the kids and them I left her with, and she was struggling to make ends meet. However, I told the woman, which was Mrs. Mildred Jones, and give her a name, you know. I used to call her the mighty angelic warrior. She took me or helped me walk the road.
One of the churches.
Yeah, that was the 7 days woman, and helped me walk that road. And I told her, look, I'd like you to call my wife, and she lives at Santa Flora, and tell her I really want to see her, and tell her it's very important. Well, it so happened that my wife came a week after, and she reproached me, she said, Dan, you know, I just come when I have time, you know, but the way you send for me, like I don't come, and what's so important about this, I know your situation. I said, it's very important. So after she held my hands, because I was in a little cubicle, you got to hold hands, and I told her, Pet, you know, I called her Pet. I said, Pet, this morning, girl, I sent for you because my life has been forfeited, and I'm ready, more or less I'll be going to the gallows, because then that was my sentence. And before I go, I want to ask you, I want to offer you a divorce, because you are a young woman still and you can continue a new life. Oh boy, well, that was a mistake I made. She started to reproach me and tell me, oh, wicked and evil man, because I used to be dishonest, be unfaithful to her. And now that she have one thing left, husband and wife married, and I want to take away that from her. And I was so surprised, I thought she would have been glad for a divorce. Well, we had it real hard, and the prison officer was to hold her. She broke down and crying and thing, and well, I beg her to forgive me for offering that. I thought it was the right thing, not knowing that whatever relationship
it meant something to her that she was your wife, and she didn't want to give away that.
Well, she told me that it's twice already she made that statement. She said, Dan, when I married you, I could remember they say for better or for worse, right? So I don't care what you, if it was good or if it was bad, no, you still belongs to this relationship, because she still wants to be my wife. And well, you know, we can make up that quarreling and this sorrow until it went on, so until the day of my petition, that the day Dr. Sheila Rampasada, about 6 years ago, went and interviewed her. And it was, she put it on the papers and on the TV. I didn't see the program, but in the morning I hear prisoners calling me Ragdoll. Well, I was a child name that nobody in prison knew, because I used to use the word, I get that name Ragdoll when I used to go into the beach camp area where those white people, we call engineers, and them live. And I used to go to, as a ball boy on the tennis court, and I was raggy and we were poor, and you know, being among the children, they started to say, call me, say, look, Ragdoll, and that name stick upon me.
Now, I want to ask you one point. In 2020, you said to a reporter that you had become an angry man with no sense of reason. You had become like an animal.
An animal. Well, that's the only thing I feel I could tell someone. I cannot tell someone because I'm honest, I had did that Korlak. I know I had did it. And I wish it was the other way around, because it was a fight. And I believe...
What do you mean when you say...
They better they had murdered me instead than that poor woman. Because I didn't murder her for hate. I never murdered her for that. I believe is in the fight and the way I was treated. I was very brutalized and I did murder Charmaine. And when I sit in prison, I say, but it was I who had murdered, you know, because what was the reason I murdered Charmaine for, you know?
So you were prepared to pay the price?
Yeah, and you see, I was convicted, and after time I say, you see the sentence, I deserve it. I deserve my sentence. But as time go by, I began to get old, weak, and tired, and I saw that they were choosing people as a candidate to be going up for a pardon. And I had all the qualification. I was qualified. By that time, I was how you may call it, a model prisoner, according to what they told me, that I was chosen, that way I was chosen. And nothing was materialized. What
do you think made for that? That something happened and you became a model prisoner. And I would ask, what makes the difference then? Moving from somebody who had given up, you were expected that you would have been taken to the gallows one day and you lost all reason. And then was that the influence of the church people who used to come? And
I had turned a new leaf because my past life was one of lies. I believe, you know, when I lie and somebody believe, I believe, well, I must it. But that is the worst thing. That is the most, because I was reading somewhere, and I come to understand, when you tell a lie, you have to know a next lie to pop it up, and a next lie to pop up this lie. And so it goes, and your life will become a life of lies, and sorry, you will believe in your own lies. And that is the word of total destruction. I will tell that, I walked that road. And that way, when I was sentenced to hang, I decided, let me see if I could walk the road to God then, because I was far, far away from Him. That way I went and rebaptized. And from that day on, I stopped lying, I stopped cheating, you know. I'm more, as a model prisoner, I started to help other inmates who couldn't read and write, and they had no school at that time. And I was how you may call it, I was accepted by my fellow inmates also, and by the officer.
You think that is what makes the difference between yourself and other people who get behind bars, who become worse and just become irretrievably?
You mean? Well, in prison there are mixed population. You find some that came to prison like I, never live a life of crime. Either they were drinking rum in the rum shop, and then the quarrel start and one take a stool and hit one, or pull out a knife, or even the rum bottle, and it end up murder. And these men, I meet men like that. And I met men also who had premeditated murder by committing robbery, and while the robbery was in process, something happened. I remember a guy told me who was charged for murder, he said, Dean, I never really wanted to murder money. I went on a robbery. And I was pointing the gun at the man who was the owner of the supermarket. And he said, what do you think I shoot a man? A door slam, bam! And I shot that man. Well, within the end, the police did hold him. And he was with me in the prison. Well, thank God he was resentenced like I, and he's outside today. About 4 months ago, they freed him because he started to walk a road to show that he was sorry, great remorse. And
with that, as far as you know, the circumstance as to how the gun went off? That became part of his testimony, and
yes,
so it became a point for review.
Yes, he said if that door didn't slam, you know, it gets him frightened or something, and that gun just went off. He really didn't know. He didn't go, but you know, in robbery, you know, they have to be, or whatever, they go with guns or cutlass or whatever. And I met him, and about just before court closed, around May, he was a candidate of resentencing, and the judge saw that the great remorse after his murder and his country, they call it industrious. You know, he attended programs, he went to school, he rehabilitated himself, and now they will give him a chance to reintegrate back in society. And the judge saw it, and the lawyers, and even the state representative, they had come together that, yes, he deserved a chance. And they say, he did more years than I, you know. Yeah. I did 42, he did 44 when he was freed.
You know, the time is merciless, and we just have a couple of minutes left. Oh. I may have to have you back to talk about what do you do, what do you see yourself doing for the rest of the time that God has given you? Yeah, well, and for the rest of the time that God has given you now to continue.
Well, as I'm free, I'm a free man today, and I decided after I settle down, you know, this is about 14 or 15 days since I'm free, and I want to do a lot of things about getting my birth certificate, my ID card, my pension, everything organized. And from then on, I want to visit the community center in Palo Seco and present myself. Of course, I know I'm not going there as an Olympic champion, you know, people will glad to see me. With no gold medal. I'm going in there as a man who have done something wrong and something dreadfully wrong, and seeing that people should know the truth, who wants to walk that road, especially, well, the youth. And I want to tell them, turn away from that road. And I will give them such a reason why they should turn away from that road.
Well, this is the end of part one of this special edition of the program 10 Questions. We'll have part two coming up. Stay with us. This is Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching. Once again, my guest, Felix Dean, a man who spent 42 years in prison, and the story about his trials and tribulations, as you call them. Part two of that discussion here on 10 Questions.
It brings only destruction, because when you are in prison, it happened to me. It is not I in prison, my poor mother in prison, my father in prison. The whole people who loved me, they were in prison with me. And my mother died 2 years after 1984, my mother died. And it's my sorrow she have taken upon with the little illness she had. And I had brought that up to my mother. I could tell you that. I am so sorry that happened. My mother, you know, she always believed.
You hold yourself
like
guilty and responsible
for it. And up today, I wish, well, Mr. Andy, I tell everybody sorry. Sometimes I walk, as I told Dr. Sheila Rampasad, who was interviewing me, I say, he might tell the plants and all accusing me. But even them I tell sorry. Yeah, because I was sitting among the plants and they were like, what you mean, like accusing me. And I say, I'm sorry, telling the plant and all sorry. Well, I fed up saying sorry, honest.
But don't you think you're fortunate in the sense that you have your sister, your nieces?
Oh, yes.
Sort of thing,
Well, I never thought I would have,
on your side,
after being integrated back in society, I thought it would have taken me months, gradually.
Yeah.
But that very night, that's what I told Dr. Sheila Rampasad, I felt like the prodigal son who went away and played the fool and decided to go back home. And when I thought they would have treated me with that kind of scorn courtesy, you know, boy, they give me the best, everything. And I say, well, I fitted back instantly. Like I was never in prison that very sad night. Oh, the way they told me, the way they treated me. And the next day they came me for an excursion down Caranage and met people. I went and buy a Malta. I started to walk among the living people because I had seen myself as a dead man. And I talked to the men who were fishing on the jetty, and I feel, well, this thing about reintegrated back in society would have taken time. No, it took instantly when my family had received me and the love they had showed unto me. Well, I had expected that because, you know, they used to, sorry, they used to, since my wife died 2 years ago, Christmas will make it 3 years, my plan was to be with her because she had wanted me back, and she died. And then my sister said, Dan, I was with you 42 years, you belongs to me, you're coming home by me. And my children have grown into men and have wife and children, and they used to visit me with their children, and my son John tell me, Dad, no, use my father, you're coming home by me. And then other people telling me, no, my bigger brother, and everybody wants me. I have so many places to go. No one treats me with no scorn courtesy, even up to date. They buy clothing. I never thought I would have been, when I put on this civilian clothes, I felt, where was I? You know, like I...
So you've begun a new life as it...
Oh yes, instantly. That is why I want to share my past experience, because in prison I have seen too many children. They are my children. There are hundreds of them. And I don't know how to say it. They believe they are walking the right road, the road of total destruction. And I want to tell those who never been on that road, who have intention to go in that road, I want to tell them the truth. I want to present myself, but you know, I don't know how they will accept me as a ex-murderer, you know. As I told you, I'm not an Olympic champion or something that people will...
You don't know, but you won't be bothered by it. You won't, that won't prevent you from it.
No. It will not. That is why I'm glad I have that interview with Dr. Sheila Ramsell and also with you. You know, I want people to know the truth. I want the people to know the truth of those who, especially the youths then, keep away from that road, find something to do. You know, I met men in prison who changed, you know, and they tell me, Dean, boy, if I go there, boy, and I get a work on a rubbish truck, boy, I will take that. I done away with crime. And you know, I was lucky to see that happen. About that before I came out of prison, I was in Claxon Bay Correctional Facility. Well, another prison, it had no walls, and you're near the public road. And with the prison garbage go right by the road. And I was sitting, and they're picking up garbage, and a guy turned around and he watched me. And he said, Dean, you're still in prison, boy? And when I look, I say, hey, Piper, is you? And he was one of the guys told me, if he get a work on a rubbish truck, he's not going back to crime. And that man who I call Piper, he is the exact man who told me that in prison.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Seven is out. All day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Passenger, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I would ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say, we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh. Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
So, and you've been saying that coming back out in the world now, there are lots of things that you have to get accustomed to because life changed, the world has changed while you were inside.
Oh, yeah, well, Mr. Johnson, I thought, well, while I'm in prison, I know there will be changes. But when I step out of that prison, I was in a new world. The world I knew, well, I use this word, a primitive world. Where was a truck is now a highway. Where was a little parlor is a little shop, a shop.
A supermarket.
Where was a shop is a big grand supermarket. And there, where were empty places between houses, everybody, the whole area full of and big houses. And well, the road, I never thought we had so many vehicles on the road. And the road, well, what do you call the flyovers and the, like in Port of Spain. I believe, well, this is my belief. I believe I'm not in Trinidad, I'm somewhere in America. You know, this thing with this road with the pillars. Yeah. I never thought I would have lived. Flyover, how you call them. It is grand. It is grand. It is. And I'm not saying I'm confused among it, but everything is quite different. Even the people themselves, you know, because I have been in the family circle, you know, but I have been with my sister and the rest of the family, going shopping, going supermarket, going to get my birth certificate and other things, and people just, you know, everybody busy, everybody, and they are so, you know, nobody tells one another good morning, you know, they don't have that. I met that. Very rare somebody say good morning, or you sit in a taxi and when you're going you can say good morning. You don't have that. It hardly have that. It's a kind of everybody to themselves.
I want to ask you something you said when we spoke a couple of days ago that somebody told you that there's a 6% chance of people, you know, what is called recidivism. People.
Yeah, I may commit, within the first year, I may commit myself and then back up in prison. I don't see, I don't know how they could reach that conclusion, because I believe within the year I could do so much to prevent others from coming into prison. So why should I come back?
Yeah, and I address that specifically to you, or is it that those are the statistics and that you?
Well, I don't know how they read that. So I'm not in that field, like if it's a psychiatrist or somebody. But however, I think I cannot see myself coming. If I go back to prison, I will not turn my back on the prison. They are my officers and prisoners. They were, whether I like it, they were my family. It's 42 years. From birth to 36 years, I lived in this the world I lived.
So before that event.
And I spent 6 years more in prison. I spent 42 years. And the people, as I told officers, you know, we are not friendly with us. You only talking so all meet me in prison. Every prison personnel at this moment, from the commissioner, come right down to a recruit, meet me in prison. Those who I met resigned, and most of them are already passed away.
So nobody who is a prison officer today, who was a prison officer when you got sentenced?
No, none, not even the commissioner. Well, even the past commissioner came up. Well, what opened the door is Dr. Sheila Rampersad, not for me, for all the men, ex-condemned prisoners. When the world get to know what is taking place, you have men 42 years in prison, 45, 47, and you know, and how could you have these men still in prison, you know? And they started to work on that, and the Privy Council gave a ruling on somebody judgment that all these men who were taken down from the condemned prison and had a sentence changed to commuted to life in prison. They say it was done illegally. When we were taken down from the condemned prisoner, we were supposed to be taken before a judge individually, because not everybody's crime is the same, and they never did that. So the Privy Council said our sentence that passed upon us will pass in an illegal way. So these men is to be taken back to court to be re-sentenced. That is 2 years ago, and that started the ball rolling. They appointed judge to do this matter, and the judge said it is only reasonable after all these years, and you're industrious in prison, you're reformed, remorse, saying sorry, and you know, that the judge and them say, well, yes, we have to re-sentence these men, but we cannot, because they already did their sentence. So they call it sentence has been served. And that is how I fit in it, and I was lucky to be out today with the representative of the lawyer, Mr. Daniel Khan, and I wish I had more like them. They did it without any fee, because when they first contacted Daniel Khan, that is my niece, she worked in the European...
One of the EU mission to Trinidad.
And she went and she met Daniel Khan in some function, and she told him about my situation in prison, and she's begging him if he could represent me, and he said, apparently he made an appointment, and when she went back, he said she will do the matter. So the next question was, what is the cause? I know Mr. Khan told her, there will be no cause.
That is he or his father saying that?
No, he.
Yeah, Daniel Khan.
But Mr. Khan, the father,
Israel Khan.
I read an article on the papers, that is about 4 years ago, and he said they had planned to Lego 50 miles by Howard Bonley. He was the Minister of Justice.
Yes,
and
in the last administration.
Yeah, and he said he come to understand there are so many old people in prison who have spent so many years, some of them in a geriatric state where they can walk for themselves, and he believed that they should be given a pardon. That is the pardon Israel Khan, Mr. Khan, the father, had wrote for me. And this is what he wrote in paper. I don't know Felix Dean, I've never met him. But hearing a story, that he had the story of Dr. Sheila Rampersad, I take it on myself to write a petition pleading for his release, that he should be included of the 50 men that Mr. Wanley wants to select to receive. That he would like to see me spend my independence outside. And I don't know, Mr. Khan, I never asked him, he never meet me. But you see that article that you all wrote, that wake up a lot of people. And I wish you all will continue that. There are a lot of men, but I'm not here to judge, but there are a lot of men who I believe willing to come back in society, and willing to, if society accept them as they accepted me, boy, that will be something like reborn again. Yeah. They will contribute. They will be good men. And the age, they
still have a lot
80
of life.
years. Some of them is 80 years. Some of them, well, I am 78 in January. I'll be 79. But all of them is about almost our age.
So octogenarians, some people who are 80. So there are people who are in prison in Trinidad and Tobago, 80 years old, and they've been there for like how long?
For how long? Yeah. Well, they are long as me because they came into prison almost
in the 40s and so on.
Yeah, over 40 years ago, and they were about in their 30s already. So most of them is about, well, you have to say from 35 to 40 years in prison. Most of them passed through the condemned, we had a sentence commuted, and in prison up to this day. But
is it a question of process by which people's cases be examined to see, well, who?
Well, no, the case is not to be examined.
Well, not the case, but the fact of their prison
well, that
sentence.
will come up in your resentencing. They will go back to your crime. They will tell, like my crime, you know, I'm not boasting with something I wish I wouldn't talk about. It is a hideous murder, you know, and according to the judge, and it is a cruel thing, and they will go back to that, and they will pause there, and they will go back to years in prison. They say, according to his biosocial, it is very good.
And the biosocial
is about, in prison, they tell you what you have done. You were in programs, you attended programs, you attended school, and you attended.
And they look at your attitude and.
Yeah, they really just walk. Even though we have a program which you call the cultural program, like Diwali, Emancipation Day, we celebrated, and you know.
Do you know of any cases in which guys play the system? They know how to behave and how to perform such that they get a good review, but beneath that, the reality is otherwise?
Well, I don't think anyone got away with it, because the judge will want to get your documents in prison before they will resentence you. And there are a guy, the one who's charged for a Wesn murder, David Chokatin, and the other guy,
Brad Boyce? Brad Boyce?
I don't know it. They was calling him Ninja
that is his nickname? Ninja?
But that is not his name. And he was an adult age, so he was condemned. And Chokatin was in a juvenile stage, so he got a president. And the one who got a sentence review, that is about sometime in May this year, after the judge summed up his case, and she saw his prison record, and she told him, you are not ready for outside. The life imprisonment is suited your behavior. And she gave him, she resentenced him back to life imprisonment. So it ain't one who is going before the judge just because he long in prison and he believe, well, you know, they're not dealing with that. They're dealing, of course, they're dealing the length of the 10-minute prison, but what did you do that you should deserve a pardon or reintegration? Yeah. And according to this review we have before us, you have been very delinquent in prison. You don't care, you don't show no form of remorse, you don't enter any program, not even religious program, you know. And it shows bad upon him. And he got back his lifetime. So he's starting a lifetime after, you say 30 years again. Because why? He did not try to better himself, that somebody will look upon that.
There's no evidence from him that he deserves a review to come out and so on.
So he have to start all over again now. But he's still young. If he take it as a warning, he will get himself doing something constructive in prison.
All right. All right, we just have a couple of seconds.
Whenever another year comes.
Let's sign off on your point about this. So this is you for the rest of your foreseeable life. You are walking a new road.
Yes. Right now I am walking in the land of the living as a free man.
And that's the point at which you leave it, as a free man. Good to have you. Good to have you.
Very
good.
That's
Felix Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
See you next time.
WESN.
Your WESN News on the Hour. I'm Naomi Macnish. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Beckles asks PNM supporters for forgiveness. The Education Ministry plans sustained help for underperforming SEA students. A man was shot and beaten outside a nightclub in critical condition. Brutally beaten inmate awarded $140,000 in damages. And internationally, Gaza's ceasefire talks resume as Netanyahu meets Trump in Washington. Now for the details. PNM political leader Penelope Beckles has asked supporters for forgiveness, acknowledging that the party's previous leadership made mistakes. Speaking at the Central Regional Office on July 5th, she said rebuilding and reconnecting with citizens are now priorities if the PNM is to unseat the UNC in the next general election. Beckles said voters sent a clear message in the April 28th internal election when the PNM lost about 100,000 votes. She criticized the UNC government, claiming thousands of job losses in just 7 weeks, particularly through the termination of 300 CPAP contractors. Former Minister Dr. Nayan Gasby-Dolly described the dismissals as politically motivated and accused Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissess of targeting vulnerable women. The Ministry of Education has unveiled plans to support the 6,043 students who scored below 50% in this year's SE exam. Minister Dr. Michael Dowlath says customized strategies and year-round interventions will replace short-term remedial programs, which previously saw poor attendance and limited results. Key elements include literacy and numeracy support, transition programs for Form 1 students, teacher training, parenting workshops, and home visits. The ministry is also reviewing the school code of conduct and considering reintroducing continuous assessment. Dowlath says any changes will be research-driven and aim to improve fairness and student outcomes. A 26-year-old man is in critical condition after being shot and beaten early Saturday morning outside a nightclub on Aripita Avenue. Tariq Gill of Harp Place was attacked around 5:20 a.m. by a group of men in a white Toyota Aqua. One of the attackers shot him in the stomach before fleeing. Police officers nearby responded quickly and took Gill to the Port of Spain General Hospital. He sustained a gunshot wound, head injuries, and leg lacerations and remains in critical condition. No arrests have been made and investigations continue. The state has been ordered to pay $140,000 in compensation to former inmate Randall Ramuta, who was assaulted by prison officers and inmates during a 2017 stay at Golden Grove Prison. Justice Ricky Rahim upheld Ramuta's claim, noting medical reports confirmed permanent injuries and trauma. Ramuta testified he was beaten with batons over 3 days and ignored when he cried out in pain. The state denied the allegations, citing a lack of records and delays in reporting. However, the court ruled Ramuta's account credible and condemned what it called the barbaric and clandestine treatment in prison. Internationally, efforts to end the 21-month Gaza war may be gaining traction as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu meets U.S. President Donald Trump in Washington. Talks resumed in Qatar on a U.S.-backed plan for a 60-day truce, staged hostage release, and partial troop withdrawals. Israel has agreed to key conditions while Hamas responded positively but raised concerns over aid management and the timeline for Israeli troop exits. Despite cautious optimism, families of hostages and civilians in Gaza remain wary. Humanitarian conditions continue to worsen with malnutrition, fuel shortages, and growing frustration on both sides. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
Hello, Trinidad and Tobago. My name is Mark Anthony Peter, and welcome to Breakthrough right here on WESN Content Capital. Thank you always for choosing us bright and early. Well, not bright and early, but
bright and early for him. Some of us have been up for a while.
Yes, because you have to report on news.
Listen, that's not the point. The point is you've been sleeping, and I have been not, and that is an injustice in the world. I demand fairness.
I have been not. What sort of fairness are you asking for?
Everybody should have to wake up at the same time.
No, we have a traffic problem.
Equal opportunity.
We have a traffic problem.
Equal opportunity of sleep.
We have such a bad traffic problem. You live closest to the studio, and when there's school, you have to get up 10 minutes earlier. That's how bad our traffic problem is. If we all got up at the same time.
Listen, you can't use the excuse of another problem to overlook the original problem. That just means you have to solve both problems. Solve the traffic problem, and then everybody could get the bugle horn and wake up at the same time. So I don't have to suffer alone. Or myself and those who suffer with me. Which means the stragglers like you artsy people, who all of y'all are night owls. Notice none of the performance artists we have on the show say, oh, I'm a morning person. None of them. None. AKA, I'm young and I like to sleep late. That's what it is. Not a night owl.
I don't appreciate you attacking me like this. Not bright and early, but bright on a Monday morning.
Point. You see? That's my point. It's so bright and early. Well, bright and early what?
It's not early. It's definitely bright, but it's not early. And so we're here. But I don't appreciate that. I have a very specific schedule. And sometimes I stay up past
you have a very
hours.
You have a very specific schedule.
I have a
very specific.
You're very horrible.
It's like I have a very specific schedule that works sometimes. That comes into play sometimes.
Oh my gosh.
You know? Listen, I'm always right sometimes. See how that works?
I'm always right sometimes.
Yeah, you have a very specific schedule.
Okay.
Sometimes. See, you started it.
Okay. Well,
I'm just highlighting it.
I guess I should sort of give some context as to what he's talking about. I think I would have probably mentioned it at the top of the year, but there was some recent career changes that career decisions that I had to make. And I'm kind of in this weird spot where I know and it's kind of sort of common for millennials. I'm a millennial. I'm the last year of millennial. You're like the third or fourth year of millennial.
Third? You said third. Why doubt yourself now?
At the very,
you're always right sometimes too. Come on now. Be more confident.
That's a conversation for Sule. That's not a conversation for now. But yeah, you're very much at the beginning of the millennial generation. And there's this I think they called it, I think we probably would have spoken about it on the show before about this sort of light retirement or something like that, where a lot of millennials, younger millennials, and probably older Gen Zs as well, are like quitting their jobs, and some are taking vacations, others are making a huge career shift.
Right, yeah.
And I think that's I think the career shift is more common from the people that I've interacted with and the stories that I've heard.
I think that comes to do with the fact that our education system, so we're going into talking point realm now, but our education system was fine, but it doesn't scale well, and you could even say that globally. Okay. So when not that many people are getting degrees, and we're all trying to figure things out, right? And the job market is fine absorbing a lot of people that don't have degrees, right? It's more flexible then, but as things got more competitive and scaled in size, and now it's not bachelor's, it's master's. Now it's not master's, it's doctorate. But the problem with that is, it's kind of hard to get a doctorate in something to do with biology and then be like, I know what I want to do. I want to become a romance novelist. It's like that pivot is kind of rough.
Yes,
what I mean? Or to say that, I'm going to get some sort of doctorate in international relations, and they're like, I think I want to open up a coffee house. It's like, how do you pivot that way when you've invested so much going down this path? But I think what's happening is with the younger generations now, it's almost like because that was what the system was. The system was kind of progress with your education, learn your skills, and it's all about sticking with one job, which was fine when the labor market was what it was however many years ago. But now that it is what it is now, and to some extent the opportunities, I think part of it too was back in the 50s, back in the 40s, back in the 20s, coming out of the Depression, before the Depression, when economies were growing, there were new jobs, and there were new job opportunities, and they still are. Yeah. But a lot of it, like how many new jobs are there to be a supermarket manager or a district manager for a fast food or restaurant chain or a hotel chain or a corporate job, right? Like at some point, there's not going to be another new corporation for all the new graduates. So they're going to have to figure it out. So this is just life finds a way, evolution.
Correct.
Right? How do we compensate?
So the thing is, with at least in the creative fields, and I think this is what makes being a creative so unique, because the skills sort of have to, in order to survive, the skills have to branch out in different areas.
Well, the real thing with creatives is the industry, to some extent, we've said this before, your group, not necessarily your generation, because a lot of them are younger than you, but your general multi-generational group that went to UTT, went to UE, and are more formally trained, you all have to figure out what the industry means, because before the industry was like 6 guys doing soca, and maybe a calypsonian here or there, a random comedian, a random, whoever.
It's
it wasn't an industry.
More saturated.
Right. It was like a few people were successful, and everybody else were amateurs, but now you're like, no, we have like
hundreds of us, and we all want to be professional, and we all want to raise the standards. So the country has to figure out how to be an audience, how to be a consumer market. You all have to figure out how to be an industry. So I would argue you're in the stage of, okay, and we're going to pivot into new jobs. You're still in choice A. Right? But within the industry now, you could maybe be pivoting a little bit.
So there's choice A, but there are like 10 bullet points under choice A of what you have to do. Because we had Natalia Duckwell on recently, and both times actually she was in season 1, and she came back here very recently, and both times that she was here, she made the point like we have to sort of be multi-skilled. We sort of, if you are a singer, but you also kind of have to be good at maybe you're good at makeup and you're always in performance, so somebody's going to need somebody to do their makeup for them. You're always going to need if you're good at administration, and sometimes we do need more artistic representation on the administrative level. You're good at technical work. Even though, okay, you're singing for one show this weekend, and then the next weekend you are a stagehand for another show, for somebody else's show.
Would you say that was because, you know, again, it wasn't as professional, it was a smaller scale? Because now I'm wondering, does that always have to be true?
Well, it always has to, well, it depends on if you are, well, it depends on how you define what the, and this is a conversation at the very beginning of season 2 that we had with Chris and Joseph, when we were speaking about redefining success.
Well,
it's for the individual, right? It could be a matter of, you know what, even if I'm professionally trained, let's say I'm teaching at a school, and I can do the creative work after my day job, and I can pay the bills, and I have a sense of fulfillment in certain areas, and that's successful to me, then that's successful to me. That's what success means to that person. If it is a case where, you know, you do want to make performing a full-time sort of thing, and then you have sort of side hustles that help support you, because with performing there, it ebbs and flows, there are leaps and there are valleys with the industry. So it all depends on what you're okay with and what you have to do and what you want.
You see, I think this is a slightly different, though similar topic. It's not about how you define success, because that is with regards to, as an artist, what's successful. It could be commercial, it could be completely non-commercial. You could be rich, you could be poor, but you define success either way could be fine. This, I think, is more about how do you define being a professional artist.
Right.
Because what you just said there, are you full-time just working off of your craft, or do you have to have a side hustle? Are you a teacher and an artist, or are you only an artist? Are you a performing artist, or are you a producer? Right? How do you define professional? Is it just directly with regard to making it? Because a teacher makes money off of art. But are they, obviously, no teacher will call themselves a recording artist. So are they a professional artist if they're a
So
teacher?
there's actually something called the teaching artist. And there's a book that I recently bought, and I can't wait to read it. There are certain things, so when I was teaching in this primary school that I was able to find creative outlets in what I was doing. Because I was teaching, first of all, I was teaching the subject. Back in the day, there are a lot of musicians who weren't teaching their subject. There are a lot of musicians who were teaching like English. There are a lot of creatives who were teaching other subjects,
languages,
right? Yeah. So now we are able to teach what we actually studied, right? I can find creative outlets in what I teach and how I teach, how I taught. And let's say the school was preparing for like the Christmas concert. I was directing the choir, so I had creative outlets in that realm, right? I think the thing that I was struggling with was my level of energy after the teaching day. And because you do need to, some people can, like I know somebody who, he teaches very, very far from where he lives.
How old is he?
He's like in his early 30s.
Oh.
Yeah, he teaches very far from where he lives, but he still has like rehearsals Monday to Friday every evening. And he's still able, like, I admire him so much. It's his level of discipline and his level of, and he's an excellent performer as well. Because he performs. He performs with everybody. He performs. And he's really, really good at his craft. I don't think that could be me.
Yeah.
But granted, his circumstances are different, where there are certain decisions he had to make, and he's okay with these things, right? He's a different person to me.
Not just that, like it comes back down to your body, your metabolism, your lifestyle, your workflow, how and more importantly, I think how your brain deals with having to compartmentalize things. In some ways, I'm very bad at it. Like I could have something ongoing in my brain, but then my brain kind of wants to default to that, and it doesn't want to try to jump between two things. So it could be ongoing projects that I just want to mull over in my head.
Right.
If I have another one that I want to give attention to, I kind of almost have to abandon the first one.
Yeah.
Right? And I do try very hard to compartmentalize talking point to other things, because it's like I can't deal with that all the time. I will die inside, my soul will be crushed.
Exactly.
And I guess in your case now, part of the problem, I think, with people that have issues like this might be because it's causing you to have to engage different things conceptually inside you, and not everybody could multitask.
Especially if you grew up in a system that had you focusing on one thing. So that's why I said the creative industry is very interesting. So the pivots in other industries seem kind of strange, because if you're managing a grocery and then you become a novelist, that's like something completely different. Yeah. But I'm a musician, I'm a music teacher. Let's say I lean in, and I'm also like television host of a wonderful show on a wonderful network. But if I lean into more the creative director, which I'm doing now, more the creative director, more the producer, it would make sense because I'm still within the creative field.
I mean, some people go from grocery store manager to shoe store manager or restaurant owner
so then that
retail
becomes
store
manager of retail.
So that's similar to what you're doing, right? You're staying
yes.
within your primary field.
I'm not switching from music to becoming a doctor.
Because that's like, actually, there was this one Navy SEAL who then, after becoming a SEAL, became a medical doctor, and I think like full out, I don't know if he got the surgeon, and then became an astronaut. And it's like, dude, stop overachieving. He's Asian, by the way. It's just, I don't know what it is, right? It's like, dude, like he's a legend in his, he has like 3 professional careers.
Right.
That anybody would be happy with just one. But not everybody could be like, I don't know how he does it. But I guess you're more like me, where it's like, look, I just need to do one thing at a time for my sanity.
Yes. So I told somebody this recently. I hadn't seen this person in a while, and we ended up bouncing up. And he was like, I asked him, what are you doing? He said he's working at a bank and stuff like that. And then he asked me, what am I doing? I was like, nothing. It's great mentally and emotionally.
You're supposed to kind of find a thing to say that besides nothing that is true, but not nothing.
But the thing is, like, when we ask, what are you doing with your life? We really meet the underlying question is, what job are you doing? So I said nothing, and then I went on to explain, but I am doing projects here and there. I'm still teaching students privately, right? So he's like,
that's not nothing.
That makes. So again, I guess it depends on the.
Absolutely, really needs to talk to him. What is it about your subconscious that has you say to call that nothing?
Because so while I'm doing something, so my response to him was nothing, but then I explained, and then I said it's emotionally and mentally great. It's not financially sustainable at this very moment.
Yeah.
Now, granted, a lot of the things that at least I grew up on is making sure if you're successful, if you're financially sustainable, if you're financially stable.
Yeah.
Right? So because that's within my psyche, and that's not happening right now, I'm like, okay, so it still feels like nothing.
So we had to wrap it up, but you're going to jump? Do you have another jump in store?
I've been jumping.
Bartender, Mark Anthony Peter?
Please, no. No, but
insurance salesman, Mark Anthony Peter?
I have to do, no, now you see that would make sense because I do have to sell tickets to shows. So maybe I will be, that's also very difficult.
That's going down a road I'm gonna talk to you about later.
No, my gosh.
We have to cut it, we have to end here.
We have to wrap up this first segment because we have something really, really interesting in store for you all. Don't go anywhere, this is Breakthrough. We'll be right back.
Get ready for the biggest business-to-business event of the year, the Trade and Investment Convention happening on July 17th to 19th at the Centre of Excellence in the Koya. Doors open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on business days and 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Consumer Day. Dress code in effect for business days. Park and ride available from Constantine Park and UETGR North Car Park all days and NAMDEVCO on the 17th and 19th. Sponsored by the Ministry of Trade, Investment and Tourism, Exim Bank, Bal Roop Group and Bmobile Business.
Hi, I'm Claudette, radiographer at the radiology departments at the community hospital. We offer high quality service with state-of-the-art equipment in X-ray, ultrasound, CT and mammogram. Come, our friendly staff awaits you.
Give us a call at 235-5479.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Our award-winning show is back, and this season promises to be even more exciting than before. What's Up, Doc isn't just a title. It's a call to action for anyone who wants to improve their health and well-being. Join us on this thrilling ride towards better health on WESN Content Capital.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for. It's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region.
Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Nah, you don't need to register nothing. You don't need, we can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe in different criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploited the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
FanZone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug.
You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we cannot have a stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's being the victim,
right,
or the man who's being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI. Worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
Welcome back to Trinidad and Tobago. My name is Mark Anthony Peter. Again, here with me again, Sean Michael Small. We're gonna, obviously there's something right here. Honestly, it's like Pandora's box.
I'll just say, the executive producer will be very happy that it's not another musical presentation.
Yeah, you know, we're getting very much diversifying, you know, the
three-dimensional objects,
Yes, to match your three-dimensional personality.
Why, thank you, two-dimensional person.
Wow! You know what?
I'm sorry.
I walked into that one. No, I walked into that one.
I couldn't help myself. It was right there.
Okay.
It was right.
Fair enough. You know what? Fair enough. I walked into that one. That's okay. That's okay. But I want
that clip and put that on social media.
Yeah, you'll be on my TikTok very soon. All right. So I really want to get into not just this, but how this came to be, why this came to be, as well as the other things. So I'm going to have to introduce our guests for this morning. Can you just please introduce yourselves to our audience?
Sure. Hi everyone, I am Rachel Pascal.
And I am Mandingo Pascal.
We're the owners of Personalized Gift Shop.
Okay, nice. So, Personalized Gift Shop. First of all, I like that name, yes.
Well, so that the audience could see, we have a couple pictures where we could start off with Personalized Gift Shop. If you could just see the first 3 pictures there. Of course, this is on French Street.
That's right.
Corner French and Robert.
French and Robert, right? I mean, there we have our lovely owners. And it's a nice, cozy little gift shop there. If we have a third picture, if you could just see it quick. And, I mean, a lot of it is your woodworking Mandingo, where you make a lot of the pieces. But it's not just wood gift pieces, correct?
Correct.
But you handcraft.
Yes.
This is custom, potentially. A lot of things can be customized even further.
Yes. Yes.
Quality. All right, so tell us about how it all started. And I actually want to say, actually just tell us how it all started, if you can.
It all started leaving my job in 2017 in the corporate world. Well, there I work as a graphic artist. I've been working as a senior graphic artist for quite a couple of years. And after leaving there, I went on to do, like, create items, but not woodworking, not wooden items. And doing that for a certain period of time, I recognized also that customers would request, like, wooden items that, you know, we just can't find anywhere.
Okay.
Right.
Right. And even doing like corporate, right? Because I started off doing a bit of stuff for corporate, and it was fine. But then I quickly recognized the need for like individual items, because there was a need for it, you know. And where else in Trinidad can we find stuff that personalized?
Because it's not necessarily something that you could import.
No.
You know, you can't import personal stuff.
Right.
But then to import every little doohickey, doodad, case, box, whatever, those things ain't that cheap.
No.
Correct.
So I do have a question. So it kind of sort of pivots off of the segment, our previous segment, in terms of people making a great pivot, making a great shift, a career shift. Was it just seeing a need and having these skills and saying, oh, I could do this too, or was there more to the whole leaving of
yeah, because I'm curious.
Did
you have the woodworking skills beforehand, or did you have to learn them when making this decision?
Well, I know usually you hear a lot of people say, well, it's the Lord and the Lord, but I would have to say the same thing. I think the Lord played an intricate role in me being able to make these items, because beforehand, coming out of graphic design, there was no prior knowledge, apart from building little Falcove and stuff like that.
Right.
But my dad, there was no prior knowledge of using like these large-scale woodworking tools to fashion stuff and to bring forth the final result that is before you right now. You know, so it's like the Lord blessed me with the talent, and I had to like build and sharpen that talent. And it's still a working process where I'm still sharpening it, but you would see like from start to now, the progress.
Did your skills as a graphic artist translate? Because I assume, you know, intricacy, controls, fine lines, minor details in graphic artistry, and then with woodworking, different tools, but a steady hand, I assume, is a steady hand. You just need to figure out how to have a steady hand with a vibrating saw or something.
Right. And I think it play an intricate role in me being able to do this, because it's all part of the creative spectrum, you know, where it adds to what I do now, you know, where, as you said, I would have the eye for detail, I would know what is expected and stuff like that.
So, Rachel, now we come to the part where, and this is your husband, Mr. Pascal.
That's right.
Yes, yes. So now, you know, you're with your husband, he's doing woodworking, but the gift shop was on immediate, right?
Actually,
Where did the gift shop come from now?
Just before we got married in 2017 is when he said he wanted to leave his corporate job to do his own thing.
Oh, wow.
And that actually entailed following to suit in corporate, doing promotional items for the corporate world.
Okay.
And as he mentioned, we discovered that a lot of people were asking for these one-off items. So it all started just as we were about to get married. And we decided this is a need, and we opened Personalized Gift Shop. We were first an online store, and in 2023, we opened our storefront on French Street.
So you all opened before COVID?
Yeah.
And what's
online?
Only online, social media at first. Our website later followed, maybe 3 or 4 years after that. And then we opened the gift shop.
So on that note, did COVID affect you all in any
For
way?
the first few months, it did.
Okay.
But I have to say that, again, God has been good to us. And even during COVID, we were getting items. People were still doing their things on the side. And because it was just the two of us at the time, we operated from home. Our workshop was at home. We didn't have to go anywhere, do anything. So we applied our COVID restrictions and all that, but we still managed,
So that actually kind of worked in your favor.
It did.
And as it did for some industries, because even for the artistic industry, it allowed individual artists to put more of effort into producing their own content as opposed to just waiting for the hiring job or something like that. Everybody have a ring light now, right? so and a portable mic, but that's just the thing with with the social media.
Sounds like you're toting something there.
Please don't embarrass me in front of our guests. Okay? Anyway, you already embarrassed me in front of national television.
I know, it's like, what's two more people?
Oh, wow. But what I'd like to get into some of the items that we have with us. Now, some of these things are very, very, they're like sleek and clean, and I just love it. Can you, so I want to start with that item over there, probably because the wine is there.
You know? You can always sell a trini. If they're not holding pepper sauce, they're not holding liquor.
Wow. Correct. So tell us about this item, please.
So, strangely enough, this item was made yesterday.
Whoa!
I finished this item like last night just for you guys.
Wow.
Yeah, I said we needed to add something new.
Okay. All right.
I'm not gonna lie, that looks way too finished to be only just finished.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, you really have.
I actually was trying to say, when you make this, and I was like, yeah, we've had this piece for like 3 years just as a display. It's like, nope.
I am actually quite impressed. You're very talented. So you made this last night?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And well.
How long?
How long did it take?
Yeah.
How long does the item like this take to make?
I think if I was to focus time on this item, it might take about an hour and a half.
Okay, wow.
Well, along with other items like it, because usually I try not to do one item alone because the time process would still be almost the same as if you do 5 items.
Right. So since you're already figuring out all the measurements, you'll just kind of cut multiple, you know, and I assume like you cut the two sides kind of along the same time.
Correct.
You know, and then you just have to do the pieces to join them.
Right.
And of course the finish and everything, because it's like, am I gonna buy varnish just for that one piece?
Correct. Okay, that's interesting. All right, nicely. What's some of the other items that we have on the table?
So we have like a tea box. I don't know if the camera could pick it up.
Yeah. We are the only station in nation broadcasting in HD. You can read all that. All that.
So this tea box is laser engraved. So it's die struck and color fill, where the goal is recessed into the wood.
Okay.
So and you can see from opening the tea box, we have variety of teas. So it's totally functional, right?
And that's the interesting thing, because a lot of crafts tend to be more decorated than functional, but this is the best of both worlds, if I may use a cliche. And I will probably buy this because I drink tea almost every single day.
Now, this is interesting because this is like filling the need that most people don't know that they need.
So I was not going to mention, speaking of functional, this is one of our best sellers that we have. It's our accessory holder, and people are always looking for gifts for men, for the guys in their life, can't find anything. This is a perfect gift. So on this one here, they hold their phone. Can be charged as well.
Yeah, there's a hole.
We have a whole
I just need to point that out. There's a hole in there. Just put your finger in there, right for the charger.
So your phone goes there. You can hold your pen, your glasses, watch, keys, and your wallet. And for packaging, very easy. We take down everything, and it comes apart. So it goes nicely into a little gift bag, and you can personalize with anything that you want on it. Any saying, the names, all of that.
You're going to see a lot of personalized writing, and we have photos of more examples, but...
I like this saying. It says every day is another chance to do something great.
Yes.
Which I mean comes back to your story, which I find kind of so sort of serendipitous in a way, because you know, it was a great shift to go from the corporate world into this. I mean, yes, creative, but being a creative for the corporate world versus being creative and functional for the public and for yourself as well.
So we have a rare chance because we speak about the pivots, right? And it was a pivot for you, gone from this corporate job to, I have a mad idea. But not everybody does that when they're about to be married.
True.
And then the fiancé, who is like, we have a wedding and life to pay for, you know, and more life after that life. And you want to change your job. So the thing about supporting the, what some might be struggling artists, but in this case, maybe not so struggling. What was that like for you now being the family member who had to, you know, help make that decision, you know what I mean?
Yeah, at the time, I guess because I had a corporate job, it was easier to support. We didn't have any kids, we were now new in this and all that, so we said, why not, give it a shot. And that's one thing that we firmly believe, that people give it a shot. Just try it and see what will happen. Unfortunately, COVID was a little sidetrack for us, and I lost my corporate job. So since then, this has been our full time.
Which it kind of worked out because y'all started ahead of COVID.
Correct.
So in a strange way, if y'all were more cautious, it might have been harder.
Yeah. But sometimes you just have to jump out. You just have to take that leap of faith and give it a shot and see where it will take you.
For sure.
Yeah.
I just want to pivot before another time and start with the first set of photos that we have here. So this is another accessory holder. I guess this is a more simplified version.
Yeah.
Right? And then if we could just keep going and get through some of these quick, then there's the one that you just showed us.
Right.
And then we have another one. This I thought was so cool.
So this was done for a couple. Of course, they lived in separate parts of Trinidad, so they each wanted their own half.
Oh.
Yes.
I know, right?
2 halves of keychains.
No, but then now imagine if you have friends, you know,
Exactly.
you've gone to school, you're going to go in different universities, you might end up living in different things. You could like buy one and share. Yes, I know, big guy. Okay, all right. It's all right.
Things like that.
You know, he needs a handkerchief. I also love this because it shows such a different finish.
It's one of our wooden cards. It comes with the envelope and the stand, so it's different from the regular cards you'll find in the store.
Because you could like, I mean, cards tend to, you know, you lose them, they get crumpled, they fall. You know, that is like a plaque. You could frame it even. Could you, do you do framing as well?
Yes, we do.
We do.
That'll be kind of funny. It's like, and then you come back to personalize it and get it framed.
Of course.
Let's go through some of the others quick. This is cool. This is a children's toy.
That's right, yeah, to help with learning.
Yes.
This I also thought was really cool too.
Nice.
Shout out Alma Mater. So, and I don't think we have the corporate ones, but you could do it to scale with larger corporate logos and stuff. We do have these. This was also cool. So the keychains, yes, but now keychains with bottle openers. Not for the kids, but for the adults.
That's right.
Do we have a few more? And we also have this as well. I think we also have it in studio, but as you can see, they are full 6-pack with a bottle opener.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, all right. And then we have the man himself. So let's come back now because we have a couple other things to show here.
Yeah.
Like there is the wine gift box.
Yes. So we have a wine gift box here.
And you can, again, customize
Well,
it.
we have the rack.
And while we have the rack, you also have a gift box. So let's say you want to do something, whether it's anniversary, a retirement.
Retirements. Yes, oh my gosh.
So there you have it.
There might be truckloads. There we go, there we go.
We did a really nice one for teachers. It says, have one on us, because we know our child is the reason you drink.
He knows. And then we have another piece on the side there.
Right. So this piece is a family tree.
Okay.
Where every heart would represent a member of the family. Now, you could have your own personalized inscription on it. It don't necessarily have to be hearts. It could be leaves or whatever your heart so desire. We will make it happen.
Yep. I'm loving so, industry-wise, while he has a moment of all of the sentimental...
Can I hold the tree?
Of course.
So, COVID happens, you're doing these gifts, you get a physical store. Like, what has been the feedback, I guess you could say? Because hey, you're kind of venturing into, you found a niche. I've been saying this on my other show a lot with regards to economy. People, we need to like find niches and innovate and do new things. And hey, you come now, I'm like, I know I'm gonna just pivot
Not a totally hard pivot, but somewhat of a hard pivot.
I think it was a hard pivot.
Well, I mean, it would have been a harder pivot if you were like an actuary. You know, if you were a numbers guy, it's like, I'm going to do arts.
From being on the computer,
I guess.
It's like all your fingers are totally safe pressing keyboard.
No offense, but if you were like a smaller guy like me, dealing with woodworking tools might, you know.
That's why you're not using it.
That's why, yeah, exactly, yeah.
But
I would have lost a finger by now.
But yes. So that experience for you, what was it like in terms of just making that pivot?
I think at first it was a little bit bumpy, but it's a process of it have a lot of fun in it, and being passionate about what you do. I guess it helps with the process, you know. So I guess now I'm here and I enjoy what I do. I enjoy seeing the products, although I don't get to keep the products, you know. After you finish and it's like, oh, this is so nice, and it started off like, you know, the products would last a little longer in your hand, but now it's like, oh, this is nice, okay, and then the customer enjoy it. Bye bye.
Right. But I mean I would like to say, like, a lot of my mentors have always told me, you know, my talent is not just for myself to enjoy. It is meant to share with the world. And if it's there, if I only keep it within, then I don't get to sort of enjoy what I've been able to do with it. Now, this is, well, it's not Pandora's box, right? But I'm assuming this is a jewelry box.
It's an all-round gift box. People can use it for anything that they want. You personalize the top, and again, for birthdays, keepsakes. We actually have a really nice tradition with Christmas boxes.
Yes,
put gifts.
I was now thinking for a kid, like if you have something, like if it's a video game, cards, books, but something small,
you put it,
right?
Instead of a stocking,
yes.
Right, so it's like a keepsake box, and we leave the top blank like that so that you could personalize it however you want.
Right. I would like to say, coming from the creative and performing world, like these are good things to have as props. So you can definitely like tap into theater people coming to you and saying, you know, this is what we need for our set and stuff like that. Because even though this is an all-round box, like if there is indeed like a Greek tragedy happening, this could definitely be Pandora's box.
We can't show it, but you all did do a promotional piece, which is almost like a mini set, right? I won't say what it is, but it was what we were talking about, right? And it impressed me a lot because it basically blew every other supermarket display I ever saw to the water, period. Right? Now, we have a couple more photos to get into because one of the things we haven't necessarily seen, everything looks like it's wood and varnish and it's all different versions of brown, but we have a couple more to get into, a couple pictures before we wrap things up. And to show off a little bit of color, here we have, that's a personalized sign for your home.
For a child's room.
Or for your child's room. And
nursery room.
You could have a different sign for more adult versions,
right? Definitely.
And then, of course, corporate, we have a corporate one there. So there's a bar, of course, not so much color, but
that's detail.
Was that laser as well? But like the level of detail in it. Like, do you just program it and it comes out, or do you?
So how does the laser happen?
So this one was CNC routed, right? So we route it out and then we color fill the item.
Also, like it'll kind of burn the final color on it or something.
So the CNC is a machine with a bit, right? That
it'll carve, right?
Right, it would carve into the wood and do whatever design that you put on the computer, and then you would by hand fill in the
right.
I mean,
whatever finish you want.
Right. I know the finished product looks like a machine just randomly do it. But
well, I wouldn't say random, but yeah. No, but I just saw like the level of detail to get that those, you know, somewhat deep looking cuts. Not that deep, but you know what I mean.
Now some of your items are not just limited to wood. No. Right? What else do you all do? I think we have something just sort of behind the table there. I'm so sorry I'm jumping again.
Do we go?
Yeah, we're going.
All right. Well, new on the list is some of our awards. These are acrylic, and they can be done in any shape, any size that people want.
You can write on it. We have an example to show. You can write on it. I don't know, Master Control, if you could jump to the last picture first. Now, there we go, there.
This is actually one of our acrylic wedding invitations.
That's when you're going fancy.
So very similar to the award. Yes, you could write on it, but we do them in wood as well, so they're laser engraved.
Like that's when you fancy.
I would do that.
Yeah.
Step
out and make a difference.
Of course.
You don't want a regular invitation. You do it in nice wood, engraved, acrylic. You hold that up. nobody's going to feel like that's something to keep. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm
Look, you
all
get the souvenir with the invitation.
True.
Exactly.
Although we do wedding tokens as well, and the wedding signing boards, which is a big thing.
That's coming up. That's coming up. We have more. Let's run through the list. Let's go back where we left off.
Okay.
So this is a series now done for what is hardcore experiences, what is the Acerite Bird Sanctuary.
Acerite Nature Center and Mount Pleasure. So we did both their signs for them, which I think we have.
Before.
This is before.
When you cut out everything, the writing is pronounced. It's not like the other things where it's sunk in, right?
Correct.
So wait, go back to the side. And then also, I mean, look at the level of
So we
detail.
hand painted, CNC routed, custom made signage.
And then we have a next one.
Yeah, so this is the one for Mount Pleasure.
Okay.
Their second property in Grand Riviere.
Lovely. Okay, so that's the sort of the finished
Yeah.
sign of it. Okay, what comes after this one?
And of course,
okay,
so you're not just limited, although y'all don't do a lot of projects at this scale, like big furniture projects, is that correct?
Correct.
You were telling us.
Because we try to stay more with the gift shop items, but if a customer would request a bigger item, we would still see how we could incorporate it in the workload to make sure that we're right.
Nice.
Couple more. I think at least one more. One more, yeah. And this is for the wedding. So you had y'all could do this many ways.
So what is this?
So
yeah.
This is one of our wedding signing boards. It's a drop box. So persons will sign the hearts and drop it in. This customer particularly requested a turtle. Could be done again in any shape that they want.
Okay.
But she wanted a
You
turtle.
also have one in a tree, in the
Yes.
shape of a tree where the leaves, they sign the leaves?
Yes, they sign the leaves as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's this turtle and you sign the
Yeah.
heart and you drop it in.
So they get to mount that on their wall after or keep it as it's something different as opposed to a regular guest book that you're going to just put in a drawer somewhere. This you get to display on your wall.
And that would hang up in the living room.
Absolutely.
Somewhere, and then that's a reminder, and then you bring it back for the renewing of the vows 10 years later.
Yes.
That is absolutely
I like the way
amazing.
he's thinking. Wedding invitations,
Yes,
renewal
of
of
course,
vows.
of course. That is one way to kind of psychologically pressure each other. Hey, no funny business now. Right? we have mementos of the wedding right in the living room now.
Because I am going to take that wedding invitation and put it by my table in the reception. Right? And I'm going to, I'm getting carried away. I apologize.
No, but that actually, time out, because now I'm thinking as a business, if I do events and your invitation could then be your name,
on
your name card, and I have it there, so who I am is kind of there.
Yeah.
So it's like legit, there's no papers, please, where's your invitation? It's like, it's right here.
I would actually, I'm actually going to
steal other people's invitation.
Correct is right. I'm going to make an order right now. So can you do, it's sort of like that, but instead of a wedding invitation, can you put either the Wi-Fi password on it, and I can hang it up? Can you do the QR code?
Yes.
Great, nice, lovely. We're gonna.
I mean, that's kind of extra.
No, it's not.
So you don't forget.
We've done a lot of things with the QR codes. We do it on keychains, all sorts of things so people can display, even vendors displaying in markets. They ask for their QR code on a nice stand and all of that. So QR code is easy. Wi-Fi code, that's super easy.
Yes, I will just take it and
but you're not a retailer. Oh, okay,
and
I guess.
People come to my studio all the time, so people need Wi-fi.
And this is what we live for. So, I mean, you're not just coming in to purchase something off the shelf, but bringing your ideas to life. That's what we do. So give us your ideas. All of this came from somebody's idea. Somebody wanted something, and we were able to produce it for them.
I want one in acrylic and one in wood.
Not a problem.
Great.
We got you.
Yeah, my friend.
I do. I do.
have to be as conscious, all right?
I do.
My boy is like, for the next concert, I want to have 16 rehearsals. I'm like, dude, budget, please.
I could put the QR code of the concert program.
Now we're talking.
That's amazing.
That's actually
look at you approving one of my ideas.
No, because you know what I hate? So y'all can maybe shop this idea around, right?
I hate, oh, we go to a restaurant, oh, and you scan this thing.
That's and it never works.
Right? But I don't know if there's a way to have like a better setup, but then the point is, it's not just like this kind of cheapy looking sticker thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Now it's like a professional looking wooden sign.
Yes.
You know, that's part of your decor if you have good taste
And I
for your
will say,
restaurant
just
decor.
as we're about to wrap up, I would like to say this. First of all of this is absolutely amazing. All of this is great. Personalize a gift shop, corner of French and Roberts. I love that there are a lot of things similar, but it's plastic, and I'm always conscious of the environment and how we use it. So I'm liking that this is all wooden, and usually these things last much longer than some of the cheap plastic things that we are doing, that we are getting. So this is absolutely amazing. Just a reminder to everybody, check them out. Personalize a gift shop. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
We have small tokens for you guys. One for Sean.
What is this? Oh, it has my name.
Oh, we got the right ones. I was like, if they're labeled, I hope we don't have each other.
Oh my God, you probably can't see, but it has our names on it.
See, the problem with things this
so
nice, this is the problem with things this nice.
You probably wouldn't use it.
Because I know what happens to my normal keychains, right? So it's like, do I want this to go through the wear and tear of life?
You know what? Right. You know what? Put a nail on your door of the bedroom and hang it.
That's right.
But also to add, the materials that we use, right? Mm-hmm. Like all these materials here is basically from our local lumber yard. Yeah. You know, so we try to keep it local as much as we can, you know, because I believe us having a gift shop and doing this, we have control of the creative aspect, and we could use the materials that, if we could use the materials that we have here in Trinidad, it's all about supporting local sustainability. You know, yeah.
That's absolutely amazing.
I mean, this is, careful now, we might go into episode talking point where we're going into economics and sustainability, and I mean, you're right up my alley, you know, because
this is good.
Ironically, an artistic endeavor is showing innovation in an industry that is finding local space. Yes. It's almost like if I've been saying that to him personally in the last 3 years, except, you know, I've been saying it to national television.
All for economic and environmental sustainability. But thank you again so much for joining us. It was great. It was a wonderful episode, and we need to wrap up.
Yeah, just want to say, and if you have any crazy off-the-wall ideas, you know what? Throw it by them. They might be able to do it. You never know.
People can check you on social media, right?
Absolutely. Personalize a gift shop, Facebook and Instagram.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank
you. It was wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, Trinidad and Tobago, thank you for joining us. This has been Breakthrough on WESN Content Capital. Have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.
WESN